up, right? That's not the one I want. Oh, it's always fun. Hector, you there? You with us, Hector?
Sorry, I shut my mic off.
That's okay.
Yes, I am.
That's okay. It's Tim. It's Hector. It's Logan. And it's Bill. It's the Brady Bunch. Here on a Sunday morning in the Merrimack Valley. Happy to be with you, gentlemen. How are y'all?
Morning, Tim.
Logan, yeah,
It is so
Hector
morning, right?
usually gets the first hello.
Yeah,
Him
I'm
being
just
the
sitting
Hall of
back.
Famer and everything.
I'll wait for these two to talk.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Oh, I'm very quiet, Logan. You're
Okay.
barely gonna hear a peep out of me.
Yeah, we didn't even get the last name introduction that he practiced so hard for.
He's already forgot. Look, he's panicked right now.
I was just gonna call him Logan again, but it's Logan. What's your last name?
Jacobatus.
Jacobatus. Logan Jacobatus. Logan, we are thrilled to have Logan with us. It's been threatened many times over the course of this season. Life circumstances have kept us apart on camera, but it's happening. It's happening.
Hey, Sunday mornings are hard, you know?
Oh yeah, totally understood. Okay, and now, Bill, what's going on with you?
What do you mean?
I don't know. How are you? That's
I'm
basically
doing
what
great.
I mean.
Had a great Thanksgiving, Tim, and looking forward, honestly, to get back to work. A little snow, excited for that. All is great.
Very nice, very nice. All right, so we have some fun business to take care of this morning. We are doing. We're talking Thanksgiving Day. Thanksgiving Day. Is that how they say it in Canada? We're talking Thanksgiving. We're talking the first ever MVC Gridiron Awards. Very excited to present these to you. A lot of effort put in by the four gentlemen on the screen here and a cast of thousands in attempting to do something different here. Now, I mean, you see the newspapers. They do MVPs or all-star teams based on their coverage areas. You see the league. They do a first team, a second team, an honorable mention, not split up by positions. It's just kind of the getting in a room saying, okay, who finished where? Okay, there's this many slots, so we're going to fit this many from this school on the first team. And that's I don't want to belittle that process either, because those guys just finished their football season, and as we speak, the league meeting is happening right now to decide the official MVC team. What we're doing here with the Gridiron Awards, not official to the MVC. Let's just be clear on that. I don't feel like I think folks know for the most part that we are not officially affiliated with the Merrimack Valley Conference. We have a cooperation with them. They've been phenomenal in terms of cooperating and supporting what we're doing. But this is a media award, and we're attempting to do it a little different. We're giving them out by position. We're giving a number of special awards, league-wide awards. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But guys, I mean, we had some. I mean, for all the talk, Hector, that we've put in talking about the irrelevance of Thanksgiving in this playoff system, and Logan, You've talked about it too. We've all talked about it. I mean, the players kind of went out and said it's still, for the most part, they went out on Thursday and said it still matters.
Yeah, the player's going to play, right? And so they went out there and look, there were some really good games. If you look around the state, there were some really good games, and in this league, there were some solid games. Lawrence putting up a pretty solid effort against Central Catholic. The Barica-Chelmsford game was a battle right to the end. Haverhill closing out its season with a solid little run there by beating Lowell. Obviously, the kid Methuen having a day and a half against Drake. So, yeah, the kids are going to play, and I guess it does mean something, Tim. But yeah, so let's celebrate the day. I want to be positive. I think we all should be positive here. It's a final day to celebrate another solid, strong year in the conference. And you know, as you think about it, it was as it usually is, a day for seniors, a day for milestones, and a day for a lot of contemplation, reckoning back, and feelings about the program that you've been in for 4 years now.
I think, Bill, that's what struck me the most. Is it was great, and you obviously have a very personal connection to this, but it was great to see some of the seniors that have had some issues, some injury issues to deal with this season, getting back in the spotlight on Thanksgiving.
No, it definitely is. Between Connor and Elwood, it was great to see them both have such an impact on the game. You know, I think the I want to say disappointment, but the surprise was the North Andover game. I knew Andover was solid, but you know, I selfishly I wish I was at all the games. You know, watching the full game actually, Barica Chelmsford was awesome. So to be able to do that was pretty cool. I felt like I was there, but that game was a little bit of a surprise. But no, for Shane and for Connor, what a fantastic way to end their senior year. And also, I am getting some messages. We have enough salary cap for Hector. Hector's not going anywhere. Logan is not replacing Hector by any stretch of the means.
No, this is not. Yeah, this is not like.
So I just want to put out there officially that you know, Hector's salary cap is fine. I know he's on the Hall of Fame, and his
I
salary
little over
is
the number, but we do have some capologists that know what they're doing. So
instead of replying to everyone, in a single text, I'd rather just put it out there officially. Hector is not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, this is really more about. This may be about pressuring or restructuring of the contract. That's all. Hector's not going anywhere.
And all the time, I thought Logan was just an addition, not a replacement. That really
I was clarifying that. My contract.
Wow, the boots in my back now. Jeez.
Logan, in terms,
how you doing? What do you got to say for this Thanksgiving games?
Logan, in terms of what you saw from the Thanksgiving results, what's the one of the things that struck you the most?
Yeah, like Bill said, that Andover result kind of shocked me. I expected that game to be a little closer. Chelmsford dropping the game the way that they did in the end. A lot of credit to Barica, but Chelmsford's played a bunch of close games this year that they could have beat North Andover early in the year. It seems like they're rebuilding, but they're right there. And even though they lost this one, you can put a positive spin on it for Coach Peterson going into his second year here next year. To say we're right there. We just got to get over these fourth quarter humps to get in the win column.
I mean, how many different ways?
Was North Andover in overtime? I can't remember. Was that an overtime win? A loss.
I think it was regulation. But
yeah, it was
came down
regulation.
Brett Baker was like inches short on a 2-point conversion to tie.
Methuen, North Andover, and Barica all within either overtime or the last 30 seconds of the game. Those are all three losses. Those are huge.
I mean, really, they got to learn how to win. You know, they got to learn how to rise above in those moments. But I mean, I think the other thing that just obviously would probably have struck us all is just how I think Peterson said afterwards, like the kids got exposed to 1960s football on Thanksgiving. I mean, like with the weather every single one of those fields was mud.
Yep.
And Bill Ricca was probably the biggest example of it. I mean, to see those guys afterwards, that was just, and the elation, even on the losers' faces, of just getting to play. Listen, just when we're kids, when we're 7 years old playing in the sandlot, or just in the field. Those are the moments you love, when it starts raining, your parents are yelling at you to come in, and nobody's coming in. We're all just splashing around in the mud. It was quite a day. It was between the Bill Ricca comeback, between the 90 points put up in Methuen-Dracut. Bill Bryant.
What?
Bill Bryant, multitasking. Bill Bryant, during the broadcast, making a comment in the stream.
I might have been hacked, Tim. I was not broadcasting.
We want more Hector. Okay.
No,
so,
I think that was the wife. I think she might have hacked my account.
So there's more Hector. There's Hector full screen. Let's talk specific games here. In terms of excitement, probably the place to start here is Methuen-Dracut. 50-40, just a back and forth game. Rangers had control of it much of the way, but the Middies did not give up. They kept fighting behind the maestro efforts of Lucas Abargwin at quarterback. 272 all-purpose yards for Abargwin, 5 touchdowns, drew them to 30-28 at one point, right, Bill? I think it was 30-28, and then Connor Bryant and the Rangers took control of the game in the second half. Connor, 40 carries, 209 rushing yards, 5 TDs on the ground, 81 passing yards, and a long TD throw to Michael Palmer through the air. Records broken in this game. Most combined points, most points scored by a team in the rivalry, which is now tied 27-27 and 3 ties. So, all sorts of great individual efforts in this game. Zach Bergeron, 16 carries, 153 yards, a 43-yard touchdown run. Mitchell Cripps had a nice touchdown catch from Abargwin. We mentioned Palmer. Kyle Silva had a 60-yard pick six. And then Patrick O'Toole had a 39-yard touchdown catch from Abargwin. Bill, you were there. Tell us in terms of how this rates of what you've seen from the Methuen-Dracut rivalry.
I don't know. I've seen better games, but as far as just excitement and the weather and the mud and just plays, it was definitely up there in one of my top games. And it's weird. There was some good defense played too. It just both Dracut and Methuen offensively tapped into weaknesses on the other side and went with it and really hammered down. Logan, you were at the Borica-Dracut game. If you had to guess how many varsity players were on the Dracut roster, just anywhere from 20 to 45, 50.
Because probably somewhere around 30, yeah.
It just seemed really low. I was shocked at how few kids were on the sidelines for Dracut, which was a surprise to me. I remember the Borica game. It just seemed like Borica had way more kids, but it didn't seem like an Iron Man squad. So that's a concern when you see low numbers like that towards the end of the season. But the game was great. The fans were great. It was definitely very, very physical. At times it was on the other side of physical. It reminded me of the Alabama-Auburn game yesterday, where there was a lot of garbage, a lot of stuff going on that I would have hoped that the black and whites would have taken care of early. But they definitely let him play, and it definitely got a little chippy.
Bill, how do you put up 90 in a game like that? I mean, is it just things just start to spiral and big play after big play? What happens at that point? I mean, the fact they put up 90 in the mud kind of shocks me a little bit.
I think it shocked everybody. I will say this. You have the two quarterbacks, and Connor rushed the ball 40 yards and 40 times, and they could, between Coleman and Bergeron and Connor, they couldn't really figure out kind of who to cover, and I think that was the demise of them early on when he got hurt. It wasn't just him; it was figuring out the three of them when they're out there. And I think when you talk about Lucas, man, that kid, I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback scramble and make plays the way he makes people fall down. He's incredible. So I think for Lucas, he used the weather and the mud to his advantage to keep the ball going. For Connor, it was just, I'm just going to run you over and over. And he definitely wasn't too thrilled at dinner time as far as how his body felt.
How we doing today?
Feeling a little shoulder thing going on right now. Drake has a huge kid, number 44. I couldn't find his name on the roster. And there was a play Connor dove for the first down, and that large gentleman over 270 pounds helped him and landed right on him. So a little bruise on the shoulder, but all in all, pretty good for 40 carries. But yeah, it was a great day. And as his dad, you obviously know my conflict, and he's graduating, so moving forward, that will be put to bed. But it was a great day for us to have him have that opportunity to go out and have just a solid performance, and just a great day, just like the Elwoods. As much as they're old school, strict team first, you have to guess that the Elwood family was pretty pumped for Shane to be able to play and have such an impact.
Well, let's go there next. Great, good segue. Redmond 28, Wilmington 13. Now, this rivalry doesn't have as much juice, okay? Redmond have owned this rivalry the last decade. They scored 28 unanswered points to take the 10th straight win in this rivalry. But as you mentioned, Shane Aylward comes back, which, by the way, the last game he played in, the Duxbury game, 2 sprained ankles in that game. So he's playing with all his other ailments and 2 sprained ankles, and ends up with 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 77-yard kickoff return touchdown being one of those touchdowns, another receiving touchdown being the other. But a huge game for Aylward. Ron Rometta, 10 for 12, 155 yards, 2 TDs. Danny Fleming, a 10-yard touchdown catch from Rometta. Will McKay and Robbie Kimtis each got a sack. Mike Kelly recovered a fumble on a botched punt return for the Redmen. Final game at Doucette Field. They will move on to a new field as part of a rebuilding project next year. If it was the final game on the grass at Drake, we don't want to at Beaudry. We don't want to not mention that. But I mean, in terms of we're getting a whole new field here with Tewksbury, Bill, and as much as there's memories there, I would have to say that's probably for the better.
Yeah, it's definitely a field that's caused some, I don't want to say injuries, but it's caused some injuries. Not a great. Has anyone confirmed? Is it grass or turf that they're putting in on the new field? Hector, have you heard?
Yeah, turf. It's turf's going on the side there.
Okay.
So it's right next to it.
He just said new field. He didn't say turf.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do grass now, right? If you're going to do something new, why would you do grass?
If I'm Tewksbury, I would stick with the grass. I think they've had a lot of success with the grass. I think it takes some of the. I don't want to say they're not as athletic, but to me, they're more grind you out. Battle at the line of scrimmage. I think they have speed, but they also have that power, and I think that's an advantage. So when Drew texted me and said they're going to be playing at the new field, behind the school, and they're building the field before the school. That's why I'm asking the question. I wouldn't be shocked, but if it's turf, it is what it is.
And you mentioned Ronnie. You got to give it up for him, obviously, with the final game at Doucette. They had a giant alumni presence at the football alumni presence at this game. They did a nice job with that, celebrating the history of this. Is Tim, you said this rivalry's lost its juice. Not in those two towns, even though Tewksbury is dominating this thing.
When I say lost its juice, on the scoreboard, not in the stands.
Yeah, no, I understand exactly what you meant. Just that this is a rivalry that these two towns really crave and want, and he did a nice job getting those kids or those alumni back and involved and celebrating, like you say, a game that has become a lot more of a formality than it has been a competition lately, but still, it's been important to these two towns. So good job by the Tewksbury folks in that case, celebrating it, embracing it, and taking it forward.
Logan, in these situations, how do we move forward here, in your opinion, and still protect some of these town-on-town rivalries that Thanksgiving uniquely spotlights?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're gonna go away. I think there's way too much pushback from all over the place for that. They can be built into a yearly schedule. You can make it the last regular season game of the year. It's not going to be at 10 a.m. on a Thursday, but you can build it into the schedule. They have plenty of options, I think, to do that, to make it the last regular season game, to keep all the rivalries across the state the same.
Now that this is played out, guys, Hector, Bill, I mean, now we've been talking about it in theory, removed away from the sentimentality of it. Now that these games have played out, and we see the impact, and we get to read Jerry Callahan's column all over again. By the way, if those who don't know it, Boston Herald has run. I don't know if they ran it this year, but I know a lot of people reposted it. Callahan wrote a column, and it was a tradition with the Herald. They'd rerun the column every year in terms of what it means to these kids to play their last game on Thanksgiving. And great column. Kind of reminds you of Callahan's writing chops beyond the WEEI stuff. But now that we've seen now that we've had a dose of the sentimental side of it here, guys, Hector and Bill, any different views in terms of Thanksgiving and where it fits into the mix here?
Well, as somebody who was standing out there in the cold on Thursday morning at a game and seeing nothing but empty stands, and I just want, look, I think we've been over it. I still feel the same way. I feel I can't be sentimental about it. I do. I look into the eyes of the athletes as they play, and you see that it's important. I just wonder if it's like Logan said, if you just had that final game in the last game of the regular season, wouldn't you see it then too? I mean, why does it have to be on Thanksgiving morning?
Yep.
So Tim, as far as you changing my mind, I had an incredible day watching my kid play football, and with the potential 600 other people there, that part of it's gone. So as much as you may get 800 people write in and say, don't get rid of it, well, where the hell were you? You didn't show up to the game. And I've been pretty disappointed in the Methuen alumni as far as showing up, and I think they're doing it in spurts. I think Al Delino is doing his best, but that part of it in a lot of these places has fallen really far off. And it's
the alumni side.
Yeah, it's really sad. So I think Logan's right. I think if you just get rid of Thanksgiving, then that's not the point of what we're talking about. We're talking about changing the format of the regular season and getting the playoffs earlier. So you're not playing on Thanksgiving because the season will be over. And I think that's the difference. It's not like there's a group saying let's get rid of Thanksgiving Day football games. We're saying it's too far, down the road to be playing. They've got games next week, and you hear people saying basketball tryouts and all these other things are going on. That part of it will not change, And for me personally, I love football. As you can see, we're all doing the show, but my kid's not playing anymore. So to say I'm going to show up at a 30-degree, 5 below zero, rainy, snowy day. I think a lot of people are opting to stay home and watch it live on cable or whatnot. So now, to me, it's do the right thing and fix the season. And make it be a little bit more player friendly. And like Logan said, Drake at Methuen rivalry is not going away. It's tied up, and they can change it and make it be the last game of the year or whatever, and keep that intact.
All right.
And if you saw it too, you saw Duxbury and Lincoln Sudbury both played their JVs. Both teams headed to Foxborough. Both teams played their JVs.
Yeah,
and
why
got
wouldn't
walloped
you?
on Thanksgiving.
Yep. I mean, because you have to. I mean, you got to protect your guys. Tradition doesn't matter when you're going to Gillette. All right. So the last, well, not the last game, but the last of the close games. As we mentioned earlier, Billerica 21-19 over Chelmsford. Chelmsford scores twice in 9 seconds to go ahead late. They scored late, and then they recovered an onside kick. And then Brett Baker hit Dylan Brotherston with a 49-yard touchdown pass to actually put Chelmsford ahead 19-18 with under a minute to go. Guys, this is the one vote that made me change my mind a little bit, because we've seen it over and over. As much as this team might have been out of the playoff mix, Nolan Houlihan has delivered for this team again and again and again in terms of the leadership, in terms of making these plays, and he led the Indians down the field in 60 seconds to set up a 27-yard game-winning field goal from Sean Reyna, one of his 2 field goals, but hit a 27-yard field goal in the rain, wind, mud. How hats off to DJ Seidel for even getting the ball down, placing the ball on the kick. But Reyna hits the 27-yarder. Indians win it 21-19, guys. Let's start with you, Logan, just in terms of you've lived this rivalry. You mentioned it earlier in terms of Chelmsford just not being up to muster yet in terms of hitting those moments. Now, De Palma says Lipoli was the quarterback. Lipoli was replaced late by Brett Baker, from what I understand, Dave. So
that's what I read as well.
Yeah. So
and Saar actually.
Yes. So, Logan, just in terms of this rivalry, in terms of what you've seen from Chelmsford this season, in terms of what happened in this game, I mean, what are your takeaways?
Yeah, so I touched on it earlier. I definitely think Chelmsford's heading in the right direction. They've had their glimpses of what they could be this season and what they might be next year. They just aren't able yet to put it all together for the full 4 quarters, finish it at the end. But that's something that will come. I believe, like Brett Baker, I think, is just a junior.
Yep.
Stackpole for them as a junior. So having those guys like that come back next year with some of these experiences will be good for them. And then Billerica, who I got to see a lot this year, I think they are better than the record ended up being completely. They struggled a little bit earlier in the year. They were missing some pieces on the offensive line, which didn't bode well for Houlihan or their offense as a whole. But we've seen once they got those pieces back on the offensive line, how they're able to run the ball, how Houlihan can make a play out of nothing when he really needs to. And with Cyrus on the outside for them, they're a really good offense.
Hamilton,
when they get rolling,
they're
going.
Yeah, and I think it was just like they had a couple of choose your own adventure moments there in the beginning. Like you said, like they're better. I mean, 8 wins is nothing to shake at. But I mean, they had a moment there against Andover. Where that was a defining moment in the season, and it didn't go their way, and so they're not in the playoff mix, but I mean that's a good team, and you know it's gonna play out, you know, just as a preview, you'll see it in our awards. I mean, like there's a lot of rightful love for that team and for that offense, and especially, listen, I was there for the Billerica Andover game. There was a lot of disbelief among hardcore Billerica fans, between even like school officials, like what's going on with this team? Like Houlihan was off to an awful start, but like you said, they had a lot of injuries they were dealing with, and I mean, that's a moment where you can, again, you decide as a team, what do we want to be? What do we want this season to be? We might be out of the playoff mix, but what do we want? How do we want to finish? And those guys never stopped.
Yeah, there's no quit in that team.
And just I mean, again, like you said, they got weapon. They're going to lose Houlihan. Hamilton will be back. I mean, they're senior heavy. If I'm looking at the roster and being honest, Hamilton will be back. Joe Dufour will be back. But I mean, for those seniors to kind of lead and step up and you know, the exclamation mark on a great end of the season for the Indians, a 21-19 win. Now the other Thanksgiving games we'll kind of go through quick here, because as we said, they were far less dramatic. I mean, hats off to Haverhill. Okay, hats off to the Hillies. 28-7. They said, you know, Coach O'Connor said, listen, after the end of the regular season, the end of the MVC season, we got 4 games, we're going to win them all. And again, another team that was hit by some injuries that got whole and kind of rediscovered who they are in terms of just focusing heavy on the run. They beat Lowell 28-7. Large part of that had to do, I mean, Brendan Ty's been the heart of that team. The first drive, he led him right down the field, capped it with a 28-yard touchdown run. Injured soon after, left the game with a knee injury. All reports out of Lowell are that it's not like career serious. He was walking around on it on the sideline. I think it was more cautionary, but nonetheless, out of the game. And the Hill. I mean, listen, even with Ty out of the game, Haverhill still got to take advantage of it, and they did. They did. Brady Scaffis, 82 yards rushing, 2 TDs for the Hillies. Dasani Houston, 12 carries, 71 yards, a touchdown run. Hillies, 243 yards on the ground. Defensively, they allowed just 3 yards of offense to Lowell in the second half. Yes, that is correct. 3 yards, folks. Carlton Campbell, 2 sacks for Haverhill. Brandon Grundy, another huge effort. And he made a tackle-eligible catch for Haverhill, so congrats to Brandon. But a big defensive game. And Aiden Alvarado, 11-yard TD run. And one more name to mention, Xavier Ramos, a big interception for Haverhill. So Haverhill finishes on a 4-game win streak, Hector. Games don't matter per se, but another situation where they could have bailed and bailed on the season.
Right. So, a couple things on that, Tim. Credit to Tim O'Connor for keeping those kids together and keeping them going. There's a tendency, oftentimes, in city schools to kind of abandon things when things don't matter anymore. And Tim has fostered a atmosphere, a team unity that has kept those kids together. So big props to him. We would be remiss in not mentioning the career that Ty had here. He entered that game with 4,003 offensive yards in his career. That's like, I don't know, 2+ miles, maybe 2.5 miles of yards. That's pretty impressive. He finishes with 51 TDs, one off those kids the school mark set by him. We would be remiss in not mentioning the career that Ty had here. I'm getting feedback, Tim. Sorry.
Yeah, hold on one second.
Offensive.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So yeah, the 4,003 yards coming in, 51 TDs total, one off the school mark of Ronnie Rosario. Pretty impressive stuff out of Ty over the 4 years, and heading to UNH with a pretty impressive high school resume. So yeah, that's what I took out of that game.
He's legit. There's no way around that. And again, another guy that we will be talking up vociferously in the next segment, I would imagine. But congrats to both teams. And Lowell was a team. They just seemed to get hit with injuries one after another. Like, just when they started to get whole, they had another key injury, and they never seemed to get any momentum.
Well, Tim, if you go back a few weeks when we were talking about the MVC, I think Hector said it best when he talked about how 4 or 5 games in, you separate the haves and the have-nots, and I think some of the depth of Tewksbury, some of the ability of some of these players to step in a new role. Noah Fandover having their quarterback go down and the kids step in and didn't, I say miss a beat, but filled that role. I think that was the difference this year. I think it happened to Methuen, it happened to Lowell. Lowell was that team that, man, you see them one week, you're like, wow, this is it. This is the corner, and then someone will go down, and there wasn't that player to fill in that role. So I think you're absolutely right, but that's the season, and that's the difficulty of playing in the MVC is you have to be prepared, and that next guy up mentality is as true as it is anywhere else, but in the MVC, because every week is almost like a playoff battle.
All right, so two last games here. We'll mention real quick. 41-8 win for Andover over North Andover. Again, this was the game it won the vote in terms of the game that everybody was looking forward to this year. And I'm not going to say I told you so. I just didn't feel I felt like Andover came in with a huge chip on their shoulder after last year's game, huge chip and still very motivated despite the playoff loss. The way that they played against Everett, they had a lot of juice coming in from that Everett win, and they showed it. 41-8. Scotty Brown career high, 131 yards rushing, 2 TD runs. Josh Ramos, 16 carries, 86 yards pedestrian, 3 TDs. Matt Chico for North Andover, 3 receptions, 46 yards, a touchdown catch. Lincoln Beal from Andover, 3 carries, 77 yards, a 41-yard touchdown run, interception on defense. Seamus Florio, he was in our MVP vote for the week. Huge game for the Warriors. 12 tackles, a blocked punt, a 2-point conversion, 2 PAT kicks. Been doing it all year for the Warriors, and definitely had one hell of a last game before he heads off to kick for Yale University. Warriors defense allowed just 153 total yards, 29 after halftime. Nudie Moreno, a fumble recovery, 7 tackles. Michael Slayton, 8 tackles for Andover. We talked about it. This was a surprise. Hector, anything? Can you give just any explanation for as just of historically Like,
yeah,
what the hell
Andover was
happened here?
angry, Tim. Andover was angry about last year.
Yeah.
It was really cold last year,
Yeah.
and North Andover kind of rubbed it in. So yeah, that would be my explanation. I think I talked about it last week about it. Honestly, that did not bode well on the Andover sidelines last year. So it did not play well, and I think we saw the consequences of it.
There were certainly consequences. A huge effort from Andover, and congratulations to both teams. Huge seasons. Andover, we talked about it all year. They put the offense and the defense together, and just one of those choose your own adventure moments where they stepped up from their adversity moment. And North Andover, huge congratulations to Coach Dubzinski and the whole Scarlet Knights team in terms of just again never quitting on the season. That Chelmsford moment, that 2-point conversion was a defining moment. They come out on the positive side of it and go make the run right through to the North finals. So.
Tim, I'm going to disagree a little bit. I'm a little concerned, and I'm not looking to start trouble, but to me, North Andover did not show up for Thanksgiving. So with the coaching staff that North Andover has and the former head coaches that are there, I'm shocked. I mean, Hector and I spoke about it last week. That was my pick of the game as far as, to me, a good, solid football game, two good teams with a built-in rivalry. I mean,
they didn't show up on the scoreboard, and it's not what we've seen from them all year in terms of the fight.
That's what I'm saying. So I will disagree in the fact that they didn't quit. That last game,
I meant they didn't quit on the season in terms of...
No, I know.
But I mean, in this last game, honestly, that doesn't speak very well for Thanksgiving meaning anything.
No, but we'll talk about this next season in Game 3, kind of where North Andover's at, because I think Hector said it earlier, a couple weeks ago. That's a town that is looking to be more like Tewksbury, where they want to be in the mix year in and year out. And could you imagine a Coach Alward's team not showing up for any game? That's more my point. That was a dog. They laid a dog, and that's concerning to me because that's culture, and culture is everything. So Logan, you were shaking your head. I don't know if you're agreeing or not, but
I agree. It seems like they kind of mailed that one in.
Yeah, I mean,
again, though, Bill, you can't tell me that if that game wasn't in the last week of October and on a Friday night, it wouldn't have more juice or as much juice with that rivalry. There'd be more kids involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a rivalry. That's a rivalry that leaps out to me as like something that could matter. I would love to see that. I think Logan mentioned it. Like, look at this weekend with all the rivalry games in college. You can do the same thing on that last Friday night at the end of October, and then everyone else turns in their uniforms. It doesn't make the playoffs, and I just think it would. It's going to. Football is such a sport that it's going to carry the emotion, no matter if you play it on Thanksgiving or in October or whenever. That last game is going to mean something to every senior because for every kid who's been through it, especially the kids who started in 5th grade or 3rd grade or whatever. It's going to mean something because 90% of them aren't, or 95% of them aren't going on to play in college. It's just going to mean something, and I think we're just so focused on the morning being the thing as opposed to the event, the fact that it's the last game being the thing, the rivalry of it all. Just play it on the last game of the regular season and end it there.
Do you see it changing, Hector? I mean, with all of our talk, do you see legitimate change happening here?
No, why would Sanity ever take charge, Tim? It's just not going to happen. Again, this it's a big lie.
It sucks having years of experience to make us cynical, doesn't it?
Not cynical, though, Tim. It's
reality. No, I'm not saying that negatively towards you. I'm the same way. I've seen too much to believe that this logic would actually win out here.
Look, I have gone from media to coaching in the high school ranks. So I care about my kids more than anything else, and I want the best thing for them. I look at these football games and I go, this is not the best thing for these kids. I just, as a sane human being, I can't think of that. And I'm not thinking about tradition and the alumni and rivalries. I'm thinking solely about that 18-year-old kid. I think that if Connor's last game was on October 27th against Drake, and they didn't make the playoffs, and he had this game that he had against Drake, it would be just as big, maybe even bigger, because I think more kids might be involved in that rivalry, more non-players, more students just who want to be at the game because to support their school are going to be there on a Friday night as opposed to Thanksgiving morning where half the kids are out of town and the other half of kids don't feel like getting up, and many kids are watching the Macy's parade with hot cocoa as opposed to being out of the game where it's 25 degrees out and rain spitting in your face.
Actually, you're spot on.
Yeah,
100%.
The other part of that Thanksgiving thing is that used to be an event when we had far less options of things to do in our life, and we have a lot more to do. Whether, like you said, whether it's the Macy's parade, whether it's playing Fortnite or Madden or prepping for the NFL games. That didn't mean anything, but there's a lot more options, and it would just be great to see not just logic win out, but adjusting to the times, Logan. I think that's another part of it here, is adjusting to the times.
Yeah, it's definitely we have a lot more pulling us in different directions, and even then, like Hector said, getting kids up that early that aren't actively involved in the sport to go out there and watch and support their classmates is a tough draw.
So the last game here, 23-14. I'll say it again, pedestrian effort from Central Catholic. They held on for the win. The closest game between these two in a while, but this feels more like taking the foot off the pedal. Combined with Lawrence showing up and giving them a game. Pereira 2 TDs. 2 TD passes in limited action. He described it as being about 85% healthy enough to play, but not quite fully there. So once the game was not in doubt, they took him out, Finneran in. Jacob Tameo, 10 for 20, 171 passing yards. Also caught a 47-yard TD pass from Vinny Schmidt. Nate Hebert, 62-yard TD catching a huge yak play, yards after catch for Hebert. Mark Ciccarelli, a 32-yard TD catch from Pereira. Manny Lara, a 13-yard TD catch from Tameo. Nathel Achuo, 20-yard TD run for the Raiders. Nick Mazzi, a field goal and 2 PATs for the Raiders. Not much to say on this game, guys, but just were you surprised? First of all, there was no juice on Twitter on this game. Like nobody was tweeting about this game in terms of it. So when I talked to folks after the fact, it was like, well, no, this game was like, it never felt like it was in doubt. It just was a matter of how hard Lawrence was fighting versus how much Central felt they needed to fight back.
Well, Pereira was not Pereira. No. He said 85%. He was 50% because he was not allowed to run in this game. He was under strict orders to not run. He can't run the game. That takes away a huge part of that offense. He only played a half because the other Central quarterback, who was also not allowed to run, Finneran, who was banged up with the shoulder as well, I believe. Yep. So they were very limited in what they could do offensively, and I guess it showed. They weren't as explosive as they have been.
Got it done.
But right. They got, like you said, they got out of Dodge with the win.
Not for nothing. They had to win it. We forget this, but they had to win that game to win the MVC title.
Sure, right, to win it outright. And, yeah, it was for a league title, but again, it wasn't really in doubt, was it? I mean, if you look at the way the game played out, it wasn't really in doubt. Lawrence hung tough, give Lawrence credit. I mean, Tobias put together a huge season. Vinny Schmidt put together a solid year. The Lara kid, a lot of good things coming out of there, but they were just undermanned.
Yeah.
Yep. Heck, the Finner is a senior, right?
Yes.
Now, obviously, Herrera's a sophomore. They don't have anybody else in the mix as far as a quarterback that you would have wanted to get reps. I mean, at the end of the day, you look at Methuen, they didn't really have an opportunity the last 2 years to give anybody any playing time or any meaningful reps, and that obviously hurt them when Connor went down. I would have thought, with the depth that Central has, you would have seen another quarterback play just as a backup.
Yeah, I think with Pereira being a sophomore, you don't think of it that way, though, Bill. I know he's been hurt and been out, but he's the guy for the future.
I'm not disagreeing, without question.
Yeah, I was just saying.
He's the man.
So I think if he was, unproven or hadn't had the year he had, we'd be looking at it a different way, maybe. But the year he had, I think they played it the way they wanted to, and I don't, Again, there's that big part where Thanksgiving is for the seniors too, Bill.
I agree. I agree. I mean, no, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your Thanksgiving wrap up. We're going to take a quick break here, come back at you, and we will name. We will start with the offensive first, second, third teams for our first ever MVC Gridiron Awards. We will do that right after the break here on MVC Gridiron Weekly, presented by Davila and DeFusco Insurance. It's a dream to own your own business, and Val and Susan Davila made that a reality in February 2013. They started with just 2 insurance carriers, but now Right in Place Insurance for Progressive, Safeco, Pilgrim, Plymouth Rock, and MapFreight, just to name a few. Need auto insurance, renters, commercial, or home? I just asked Val and his crew to find me a better auto and home insurance deal, and he connected me with Plymouth Rock, where I'm saving more than 40% over my previous insurance. Now, your results may vary, but give Davila and DeFusco a try. They pride themselves on having lifelong roots in the Merrimack Valley. Put their experience to work for you. Visit them at 225 Broadway or call 978-241-7950 for a free quote, or check them out at daviladefusco.com. Big shout out to the folks at AFC Urgent Care, Lisa Williams and her team over there. AFC Urgent Care, the right care right now. You'll never need an appointment. Got that persistent cough and cold, that cut that needs a few stitching, or need a sports physical and don't want to wait weeks to get into your primary doctor? AFC's streamlined approach helps you be seen quickly and feel better fast. In Methuen, in the Merrimack Street Medical Professionals Building, 380R Merrimack Street, in North Andover as well, in the Burton Grill Plaza, 8 to 8 Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 Saturday and Sunday. Go to afcurgentcare.com for more details. Hey, I want to tell you about Jen Hamilton, the realtor for Keller Williams Realty. She's licensed in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and she's a big supporter of all things local, especially youth sports. She's a big backer for Central Catholic and Methuen athletics, but she's a household name around the Merrimack Valley. Hey, the autumn market is in full swing. If you are thinking of selling, now is the time. Inventory is an all-time low, making this a seller's market. In a seller's market, there's a greater chance for a bidding war on your home. So put Jen Hamilton's 33-plus years of experience to work for you today by calling for a free, no-obligation market analysis of your home. Call Jen at 508-954-7941. a huge supporter of youth athletics. Listen, her record speaks for itself. She's one of the top sellers in the region for Keller Williams Realty. Hamilton is a household word. Call her at 508-954-7941. Back here on MVC Gridiron Weekly, presented by Davila DeFusco Insurance, Tim Wood, Bill Bryant, Hector Longo, and Logan Jacobatis.
Nice.
Yes.
Boom. What's up? All right. So, little different this week in terms of how the schedule played out. We put up the MVP weekly vote right after the games. Let folks vote a little longer. Put up a fourth nomination vote as well. And your winner of this week's MVP, 6 touchdowns, five running, 209 rushing yards. A runaway winner, Connor Bryant.
With about
49% of the vote. One of our most lopsided votes to date, quite honestly, and one of the highest vote turnouts. So, congratulations to Connor. Do we have a special guest, Bill?
What are you doing?
Huh?
The predictability of an 18-year-old.
Right? Not with us.
No, he is.
Oh, there he is.
Speech.
Because we can, we have Connor Bryant. Connor, congratulations on the win. Of course, Bill is once again.
Oh, he's gonna love this.
Bill is once again larger in frame than you are, because that's Bill.
Yeah.
But congratulations on the MVC MVP award on the game.
Thank you. And Connor, you could just thank Hector for the DCF investigation and regarding you playing.
Yeah, how did those child abuse charges go, Connor? Anyways,
we're still being investigated, Hector. So thank.
Oh my gosh!
I appreciate that.
Whatever you're doing with the camera, Bill, you keep blurring out your son's face.
I'm trying to move it.
So.
All right, talk a little bit and get out of here.
You wanted to give a speech. Hector was goading you on.
Connor, tell us on why Thanksgiving is important, because you got a lot of old men here who really are doubting it right now. So.
I'm really not that old.
Sorry.
That game meant a
My
lot.
bad. Force of habit.
That was just me looking like in the future a couple years ago, seeing that I would have been playing on a grass muddy field. I love watching old school football, so be able to look at that game and see that we're going to play on a grass field, and it was just going to be a good old fashioned rivalry. That game meant a lot to me, especially be able to go out there with that senior class that I've been with for such a long time. Really meant a lot to me.
You showed
so if you thought this was going to be an easy one, Connor, you were wrong here. I'm sorry. I got to take over this, Tim.
Do it.
Was there any buzz at all during the week in school? Leading up to it, did you feel like anybody in school was behind you guys or cared, or as excited as you were about it? Was there as much excitement for the game?
Not really sure. We have a pep rally and stuff like that, but I feel like people only take that as like a day at school and just go to the pep rally and just have fun there. But I feel like we could treat it a lot more better and have a lot more hype for it.
And getting rid of the Thanksgiving Day game, and that's where we're coming across is that losing Friday nights this year and having all that go on definitely made the season rough. Our Friday night attendance numbers are almost triple, and a lot of those kids aren't necessarily watching the game, but the atmosphere, the bands that are there, and so losing both really definitely hurts. I think not making kids pay, $7 to $10 to get in, and also having the Friday night game stay would be huge.
And I just think if you wanted to go Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, that defeats the purpose because it's so much colder too. That's why to me, the thought is October and play it. Your last game there, you guys play Drake at the rivalry, sell it as rivalry weekend, and that the season ends. If you don't make the playoffs, that's when the season ends.
All right, Connor, I'm going to put you on the spot because I texted your dad after the game and I said, listen, I know you guys are still trying to figure out what you're doing in terms of football versus lacrosse or where you're headed with college. I texted your dad and I said, this kid's got to be playing college football. This kid deserves to be a Division II, Division III quarterback with the heart, with the grit, with the way he plays. Where are you at? I know you wanted to get kind of see just health-wise past the emotion of the game a little bit, a couple days past. I mean, where's your head at this moment?
I'm still unsure. Like, I would definitely love to play any sport in college, just to be able to have that opportunity to go out there and just play any sport and keep me like playing sports. That'd be huge for me. But I'm still really unsure. I'm gonna use this winter to go and train for lacrosse, but still trying to do some stuff for football.
Well, I want to tell you. Go ahead, Hector.
Yeah, just the last one for me, Connor, because I know you're a busy kid who's got things to do. How fortunate do you feel that, genetically speaking, you got the gifts from your uncles Dan and Tim and your mother as opposed from your father? How fortunate do you feel with that?
Pretty good.
Right.
So I'm going to say this. My favorite moment is he got interviewed by the Eagle Tribune. Who was it?
Dave.
Willis?
Yeah.
And they printed that his right foot had the surgery, and his mom and I were like, what the hell's going on? And I crap you not, like the third or fourth play of the game, there's a Drake kid, got his right foot, and he's twisting it, and the Methuen kids are pulling him off. He lied on purpose. He told them it was his right foot, so they wouldn't be messing with his left foot all game.
Is that legit, Connor? You backing that up?
Legit. And I'll show
you. That
you.
Is a veteran move.
Of the kid grabbing his right foot and twisting it, and a Methuen kid coming over and pushing him off it. It was a down and dirty game on Thanksgiving. I'll tell you right now. That game, there was a lot of late hits. It was as close to a prison game as I've ever seen. As far as out of bound hits, it was
2019.
Crazy, right? Yeah, but he did. He told Willis it was his right leg on purpose.
Hector, has that ever happened to you? Have you ever been party to that?
I am not. I would never be intelligent enough to know. I would not be smart enough to tell a kid to do that. And if I was getting fooled, I would just be part of that. Yeah, sure.
That was legit, Mr. Connor Bryant. Wow, nice tidbit. Hey, all kidding aside, I just want to say thank you for the effort and thank you for just what you brought to the field. And I'm excited that you got the opportunity to finish on your own terms, and more importantly, I mean that's the Connor that we'd seen junior year, beginning of senior year. Hell of an effort against Chelmsford to dig that game out, and with the rust. But I mean that's the Connor that everybody saw, and again, hats off to the Tribune. I guess was it Willis again? Was it Willis, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to do that article on you, and it was a great article, first of all, but just to give you that spotlight that's deserving. Whatever we want to say about budgets being cut and resources being cut, the Tribune's high school efforts, you have guys there that live it and love it, and just love covering high schools, and are gonna do it until they're told they can't do it anymore, and they show it. They show it just as they show it on Thanksgiving. I won't say more than any other day, but it's a spotlight for all the efforts they do. So hats off to the Tribune, but hats off to you, sir. Really,
Thank you.
Appreciate, just as a fan, I appreciate the effort and having gotten to see what you've done. So thanks.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us.
Problem at all.
All right.
Well, love you. Me too.
Oh, special moment between the Bryants. That's what you have to look forward to, Logan. Logan and Connor don't even add up to me, let alone you old farts.
Now, what you're gonna see him next? What, in court, Bill? Is that where you see him next? Is that?
Yes. That was a one-time restraining order allowed
Gotcha.
on the Sabbath.
All right, on to what I hope will be fun. I mean, we are putting ourselves out here, and in a good way. But these things spark debates. We will put out the disclaimer that we've seen a lot of football. We had a lot of discussions. We had a lot of talks with coaches, with folks around the league. Twitter has been my friend this week in terms of direct messages with a lot of folks around the league that kind of fill in the gaps in terms of the football we're not able to see. We can only be at one football game, each of us, in a week. So we wanted to do an awards, not out of ego, but just because of quite honestly the interaction that we've seen from the fans and wanting to give, just like we've been doing with the votes and with the way we've done the show, wanting to give the players a little bit more recognition, than they've gotten, a little bit different way of recognizing them than they've had in the past. So we'll start with the MVC, the first ever MVC Gridiron Awards, the Gritties, for lack of a, but we took, as we said last week, we took nominations from coaches, we took nominations from parents, from fans. Bill made an impassioned plea to fans last week before the window. I thought was well said. You had until Tuesday, Wednesday to make your case. Some folks did with me. Some folks did with all of us.
Huddle helped.
Huddle certainly helped fill in some of the gaps. We could have waited until after and we're not trying to compete with the MVC awards, quite honestly. Again, we're not affiliated directly with the Merrimack Valley Conference. We're not looking to compete with them in these awards either. It's just another way of honoring the kids, and hopefully, I think we've done our homework to put out a good awards here. You'll be the judge. We'll get going. First off,
can I just state for the record before you do start, Tim, that
absolutely.
I thought I was through with calculus at age 20 until I saw Tim's Excel spreadsheet ballot come through.
Not even. Hey, listen. I have a compadre in crime here. Like Mr. Logan is legit on the spreadsheet. All right.
Bro,
and by the way,
my math skills were tested. My brain was tested. It was a long, drawn-out process, but I survived it, just to let everybody know.
And by the way, just because I didn't say this before the show, I noticed that you added another sheet, taking all of the stats that I had created and putting them into their own. So thank you for doing that. He's definitely a Google Docs guy as much as I am. So I can see it.
Hector, I felt like I was in high school working with two smart kids on a project.
Yeah.
and there was you and I going, oh, okay, what do they say? What are they writing?
Right, Bill. Just jump on, ride the wave.
Let them drive the bus on the chemistry project.
Yeah.
I agree. Totally, I agree.
So, we have on the position awards, we're naming a first, a second, a third team. We will post this all online later. We'll post it on MVCSportsToday.com. We will also post just a visual thing on social media going through all the awards. But let's get started. We'll go position by position. We'll start with the offense. So, first award, quarterback. Our first team player, Aiden Pereira from Central Catholic. Second team, Nolan Houlihan from Billerica. Third team, Ryan Vermetta from Tewksbury. Gentlemen, don't need to belabor this. We've had a lot of discussion already, but I mean, just we'll go around the table once in terms of thoughts on this positioning. Let's start with you, Hector, in terms of Pereira.
The impact player of all impact players coming through as a sophomore, just out of nowhere for the non Central Catholic follower, burst on the scene. Just the guy, he took over he took over right away, took over the league right away, basically, and very impactful. And he was not their heart and soul, but their big play guy.
Absolutely. Logan and Bill, I guess, Logan, I'll start with you in terms of just, having seen, as you mentioned, seen Bill Ricco a lot. Thoughts on Houlihan?
Yes, so we touched on it earlier. He struggled a little bit with some protection issues up front to start the year, but once he got those pieces back, he went back to what he was last year, and it actually surprised me. He's over 2,000 yards passing on the year. You didn't necessarily think that watching him. You knew he was making plays. You knew he was being productive, but to hear that it went over that number was still eye-opening to me. And like Pereira, his scrambling ability, his running ability to escape a sack, move out of the pocket, and still deliver a good throw, it definitely set him apart.
Well said. Well, I mean, I think, great points there in terms. I just didn't. Those numbers surprised me as much as we did the slides every week, and you could see he was putting up 300-yard games. He's the only quarterback that went over 2,000 yards in the area for the season. He bested his numbers from last year statistically, and then 476 rushing yards as well, which again was shocking to me, Bill, in terms of that he had that much scrambling ability.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think Logan said it best: is he can get outside the pocket, avoid a sack, and then throw a 50-yard bomb. Or if you drop back 7, he's gonna eat you up. And I think as a senior, as a leader, as an athlete, as a kid who's going to play college lacrosse, not necessarily college football, you got to give it to him that he's there. I think the tough part is you're looking at those couple early on losses and some of those early game numbers definitely hurt him a little bit as far as being in that top one. But it's kind of cool. We have a sophomore, a senior, and a junior. So 2 out of these 3 kids are coming back next year. And to me, Ryan is the most interesting. Because he grew up as the season went. He was a kid they weren't really relying on in the beginning, and with some injuries and just the opponents, that kid grew up quick and ended up having a great season. So we're going to look forward to watching him next year.
Well said. And I mean, listen, this was a tough. I mean, they're all tough. I mean, they're all tough in terms of the guys you leave out. I mean, Tomeo put up phenomenal numbers for Lawrence. Statistically. You could make a case for a number of guys here. I mean, Scotty Brown had a great season for Andover. Schindler from North Andover. I mean, you could even, just given the way he finished, you can even make a case for Connor Bryant. There's a lot of quarterbacks that could be in the mix here. I will say I picked Remetta for third team. Or to be in this mix, just because, as Bill said, the maturation and the delivering in those key moments. As a coach, that's all you can ask for, is that your kids can be as big as the moment. And Remetta showed it again and again in clutch situations, especially down the stretch, without their biggest weapon at times in Shane Aylward. Remetta was huge. So and well said in terms of getting to see these guys, 2 of these 3 play again next year. All right, on to running back. We named 2 per team here because of the obvious setup of most teams. First team, Josh Ramos, Andover, Freddie Gabin, North Andover. Second team, Kyle DeRigo, Tewksbury, Brian Hamilton, Bill Ricca. Third team, Brendan Ty, Lucas from Lowell, Lucas Abarguin from Dracut. Start with you this time, Bill. All kidding aside on my love for BB Ramos throughout the season, first team here, Ramos and Gabin. I won't say is no brainer as any position here, but I mean two very deserving guys.
No question, and that's why I was so excited about the last game of the season for both of them. I just felt like there were two teams that had offensive weapons all over the place, both phenomenal athletes, and I'm so happy BB was able to come back from the injury last year and have such an impact. But when you look through the whole list of running backs, it is definitely an all-star team of phenomenal athletes and kids that can put on a show.
And I think it needs to be said here in terms of Ty. So Ty is one of these guys that, in theory, is a wide receiver, but because of injuries, because of the way that team, the way that the Red Raiders needed to play without Neal at times, without Finn at times, Ty ended up being putting up most of his statistics at running back. So a guy that isn't that is highly regarded and for good reason, but didn't quite fit any one mold. So we put him in the most logical spot here, Hector.
Yeah, you could put him anywhere basically if you want to create a utility thing or something like that. To me, the one guy who sticks out, Tim, is Gabin. I think he deserved a lot of recognition here simply because he had so much hoisted on him this year after being not a complimentary player, but a piece of a puzzle last year. And the year he had was something special. They, winning a playoff game, 2 playoff games, correct, right?
Yep.
Reaching the North Finals, that was a big accomplishment for him. That's why I thought he was a guy that definitely deserved to be mentioned there at North Andover.
And Logan, in terms, again, you're a guy kind of on this side of more. I won't say the MVC small, but you get to see a lot of these guys. Talk a little bit about Hamilton in terms of what you saw from him throughout the season.
He was a really good power runner. He wasn't a guy to shy away from hits. He would take it right up the gut, right up the middle, at their middle linebacker, put his shoulder down, and a lot of times he was going right through those guys and making his way for long runs. And it was the same thing with DeRigo. Every time he touched the ball, you felt like he had a chance to get into the end zone for the Redmen.
Absolutely, and again, a situation where you needed a guy to step up. You needed a team to step up. Honestly, when the Redmen lost their big star there in Aylward for a large part of the season, and DeRigo was one of those guys that just stepped up, and you see he's actually watching the broadcast. He's already chimed in to say thank you. So DeRigo and Hamilton, and then the one guy, Lucas Abarguin, he just fought his way into the conversation. Quite honestly, he was a stud early on, fought injuries through a lot of the season, and then just put up some Madden numbers in the final stretch here, between running back, then moving to quarterback, still putting up amazing rushing numbers. A hell of an athlete. So he is awesome. And again, another position, they're all over the place. There's guys that are going to get left off here that put up.
Hector, block your ears for this one. All right, Tim. It's almost like we need a flex award.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That we have these kids that are playing wide receiver,
flex or
quarterback,
the athlete.
running back, and their own numbers get hurt. and it's not their fault. It's due to their athleticism and due to their skill set that you can really plug them in multiple numbers. So, it's something that moving forward people need to consider because, as we're sitting here talking about some of these kids, man, this is the reality.
We used to create that athlete position, right, in recruiting, and now with fantasy, it's the flex. It's the the guy that's going to put up your numbers, but you can't rig it into any one spot here in terms of where to put him.
Yeah, I'll get that on the Google sheet for next year.
We'll,
I like it
for sure. And listen, a number of guys in the mix here. Guys like Jabari Baptiste, Zach Bergeron, Kyle Irizarry. Even an Aylward, quite honestly, a Mark Cassis, a lot of guys in the discussion here. We went with these 6, and again, some very spirited discussion and debate, and congratulations to these players. So on to wide receiver here. First team, Colby Cyrus, Bill Ricca, Manny Lara, Lawrence. Second team, Kareem Coleman, Methuen, Nick Donadio, Central Catholic. Third team, Tayshawn McGee, Haverhill, Dylan Brotherston, Chelmsford. Another position here, quite honestly, that came right down to the wire in terms of looking at statistics, considering impact, considering where these guys deserve to be placed, and some guys like McGee put up some great numbers in the Hillies turnaround. McGee was offensively, defensively clutch. 493 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. Colby Cyrus went over. Let's see here, got that late. 40 receptions, 1,049 yards for Bill Ricca. I believe the only receiver in the area to go over 1,000 yards. Manny Lara was close. Manny Lara was at 909 yards. Again, we're not looking at statistics solely. Our first instincts here was eyeball test and just what they meant to their team, but we certainly had to factor in statistics. I'll start with you here, Logan, just again on Bill Ricca and Cyrus. We saw some crazy numbers, some of the longest catches in school history, connections between Houlihan and Cyrus.
Yeah, I think they had a 98-yarder and 3 that actually were 95 or more, which is incredible for one season, or for a career, let alone one season. But I think for the 6 guys that are listed here, there's something to be said about being a team's number one option in the receiving game and still being able to put up the numbers that they did. Everyone knew that Houlihan was looking for Cyrus when he would roll out of the pocket, go looking deep, but there still wasn't much that defenses could do to contain him week to week.
I mean, Hector, we weren't talking about replacement when the first show started, but the kid's making some great points over and over again here.
It's about time you found somebody that can cover for my ineptitude, Tim. Okay.
I mean, but it's a great point. It's a great point, though, in terms of we're looking at 6 first options basically, and they still all delivered.
You throw out the 1,000 yards receiving. That number, and I know we don't want to focus on stats.
Yeah.
That number is immense, man. 1,000 yards receiving in a high school season is darn impressive. It really is.
You have to have so many things happen to get to that for a receiver. Yeah.
So hats off to him. I think it speaks volumes to the depth here that a kid like Donadio was second team. He made so many big plays for Central this year, and maybe that he's such a good return man and defender, kind of lessen the impact of his play at wide receiver. But man, he had a giant year. Lara was an amazing option too with Lawrence.
Yeah.
Another big play guy. Just great year for the receivers in a year where we saw passing numbers were down a little bit. To have two guys, well, one get 1,000, the other approach 1,000, very impressive stuff.
Yeah, for Donadio, 496 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. By our count right now, second in the MVC in touchdowns on the receiving side. Like you said, it speaks to the depth of the position this year. Brotherston had to deal with a revolving quarterback situation there once Baker went down, and still ends up with 553 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. So all deserving here. And
all right, real quick, I'm going to be the Methuen Homer here. The name Kareem was mentioned through the list, and then that was it. I mean, that's a kid who had a great year, and he had about 5 games when his quarterback went down that he was playing running back and wide receiver and at times quarterback. So once again, another athlete, both sides of the ball. That's the cool part about all these wide receivers is most of them played both ways. Like you said, Donadio was a stud on defense. And, oh, by the way, look what I'm doing, on the offensive side of the ball. So to me, these are your athletes that are so important to each individual team. And I think Logan said it well when he talked about the teams know about these kids going into it, and they're still making their plays and doing what they need to do, which is pretty amazing.
570 receiving yards for Coleman, 310 rushing yards, 7 total touchdowns. Again, as Bill said, thrust into a number of different situations and continued to deliver throughout the season. And again, we'll point you to a great article done on Coleman in the Tribune that really speaks to a lot of his strengths as a player, as a human. So great stuff there. And what Will said again, Bill. So there's your wide receiver list. Again, a lot of different guys receiving votes. It literally pains us to leave some of these guys off this list. A guy like Matt Chico, 467 receiving yards, 7 touchdown receptions. We talked to him on the show. There's a lot of guys in play here. Doesn't mean a guy like Chico is had any less of an impact. This is what we came up with. So tight end. First team, Michael Slayton, Andover. Second team, Jermaine Wiggins, Central Catholic. Third team, Matt Annis, Drake-it. Again, one of those things where we're like, do we do a tight end? Are there enough tight ends in play? Like, is there enough differentiation in terms of how the offenses are truly using tight ends? We did have enough of a sample size, and clearly some guys that stood out. Slayton was a beast on both sides of the ball, but 417 receiving yards on 27 receptions for Andover was always served as I won't say a security blanket for Harrington and Brown, but was always that guy that was going to deliver, and ended up delivering. Bless you, Bill.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Hector, thoughts on these guys?
Well, like you say, it is a overlooked position, Tim, oftentimes, because a lot of the times these guys are flexed out at receiver too, now with the spread offenses. But again, Slayton's impact was at Andover for not just this year, the last couple of years, has been he's been a heart and soul kind of kid for that group. So there's no doubting what he's meant to them. And, Jermaine is a talent. He's been a talented kid since we've seen him in the youth ranks. And he has obviously the lineage and the ability. So I think both of those guys, had big years, big plays for their teams.
And by the
Slayton
way,
more sort of.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Slayton more so statistically.
Right.
But,
right.
Wiggins, again, as you said, not jumping off the page statistically, but every time you'd talk to Coach A, every time you'd see this in person, just the blocking, the delivering that big catch in the big moment. Wiggins was always in the mix.
Yeah, exactly.
Logan, in terms, did you get to see it? I think Bill, you as well. I got to see him. Matt Annis is a guy that probably is probably one of those examples of the type of kid that might get left out of a discussion in a quote unquote traditional all-star team. But he really had a year for the Middies and had some huge plays.
Yeah, I got to see Drake a few times, and tight end, it is becoming a tougher position really to evaluate statistically. But it's just the eye test, seeing, are they doing the little things? Are they blocking when they're asked to? Are they giving their quarterback that extra second they need to get the ball to the other skill players? And these three, the statistics don't jump off the charts. They don't really with any tight end in the league. But these three, it felt like they all did the little things to help their team on each and every play be just a little bit better.
Bill, any thoughts here?
No, I agree. I got to see all three play, and I think that Logan pretty much summed that up very well. I think what hurt Enos a little bit is the change in quarterback and really the change in the offensive style of the game. The people that benefited from Lucas were the wide receivers that could be patient and get open as he was scrambling, where earlier in the season when I saw Enos play, it was more of a set play where he would just, shed a block and get wide open and catch the rock, or making some great blocks, which was opening up Lucas as a running back. So I think as the offense changed, so didn't
he did have that 99-yard catch from Abarguin though.
Yep.
Like when I talked to Abarguin, and Abarguin was saying when he got in at quarterback, he basically went up to all the receivers and said, "Listen, I'm gonna scramble a lot. There's gonna be broken plays. When you see me out, just keep moving, and I will find you. I promise I will find you." And definitely,
He definitely did that.
Yeah, right. and Annis definitely got that spot a bunch. And one of the great end of year highlights was that 99-yard catch from Abarguin. So congratulations to these guys. Now, so here we get into the less sexy part of the offensive awards, but deserving none the least. The stats aren't here, so to speak. This was definitely a lot of eyeball tests, talking to coaches, talking to folks that watch a lot of the league. But we head now to the left tackle position. First team, Mike Woodford, Tewksbury. Jack Roach, second team from North Andover. Third team, Jack Canto from Billerica. Not Canto O-line, as I called him. I think that was just shorthand as Logan. Another good save this time from Logan on that one. The coach just said a shorthand, and I was like, wow, that kid. How can you leave a kid named Canto O-line off the list, right?
I'm just glad I caught it and was able to get that changed before we put it out there.
Yes, indeed.
I wish you didn't, Logan. I think that would have gone down as the name flub of the year.
Again, guys, Hector, anything to say about these guys, just in terms of what they brought to the table?
Well, Tim, I think if you look at the offensive line spots, you have to look at what their teams did production-wise.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And take the Canto kid, for example. I mean, they put up big numbers. They ran behind them. It's no secret there.
Anything from you here, Bill or Logan?
No, I mean, it's you said it earlier, Tim. These are the forgotten kids. These are the kids that everybody knows that knows football. That football games are won or lost on the offensive and defensive lines. And I think what we're underestimating is the amount of pulling these kids are doing, the amount of running, the expectations they have as far as being in shape. These aren't just overweight kids that are just hanging around. Hey, I'm big, I can push you. No, these are kids that are exercising, working out just as hard as the skill players and are expected to run down the field and pull 30 yards and make a specific block. I think that's the part that gets underestimated from them. So I'm happy that we're recognizing these kids, and I think we'll get better each year as we move forward with what we're doing with huddle films and scouting some of these games. But I'm just happy that we're recognizing some of these big guys that put a ton of work in.
And I will also say, I think collectively, yeah, we'll get better. I think the coaches will get better in terms of I think, and I think they'll get better in knowing what we're looking for, because I think when they're typically asked to give you award candidates, they're asked to give you the stat stars, they're asked to give you the seniors, they're not asked in terms of position by position. So, and a lot of these guys slot into different positions. So when you're asking coaches, who's your guy in position X on the O-line, a lot of the discussion around O-line is just he's an O-line guy. It's just thanks to my O-line. It's not position by position. So, but I think hats off to the coaches, to honestly all the input that we got around the league here on the O-line, the D-line specifically, in spots where we're not normally talking at the high school level in these parts about position by position. So, any thoughts here before we move on, Logan, on this bunch?
No, I think you guys all touched on it pretty good. Just recognizing them as athletes and not just big guys moving slowly on the field. I think one of my favorite things was getting to a game early and watching these offensive and defensive line groups and their warm-ups. Seeing them go through what they do to get ready for a game was one of my favorite things.
All right, left guard, first team, Brandon Grundy. Haverhill, second team, George Cosme. Central Catholic, third team, Ben Entner, Andover. Again, Grundy was huge part of the turnaround for Haverhill, and one of those guys that you noticed a lot more when he wasn't in there versus when he and you noticed the impact he had when he was in there. Hector, any thoughts on this group?
Grundy's a big, tough kid. Kind of the anchor of that offensive line. George is I don't know if you call him a basketball convert at Central Catholic. He was a kid I had in hoop camp years ago. Big kid, excellent feet, and that kind of makes him a prototypical offensive lineman in that offensive scheme as far as they go. And
Logan, kind of hard to leave off Andover in an Andover guy in this mix.
Yeah, just the production they were able to put up with Ramos running the ball, or whether it was Scotty Brown, his running ability and the protection they gave him as a true freshman. Really, all of their offensive linemen were in the mix for these awards.
And I think honestly, I think what spoke to me in terms of the O-line for Andover was just the adjustment they had to make in terms of Harrington, your more traditional pocket passer with a little scrambling ability versus a Brown guy, Scotty Brown, who is just I'm not going to say scramble first, but the play's never dead. So you're going to have to adjust on a lot of different fronts, and then having to adjust with injuries when Ramos went down and Beal still having huge games. It speaks a lot to to the skills and the work ethic of that O-line. So congrats to our recipients at left guard. Center, first team, Tristan Ondek. Andover, second team, Antonio Capello. Tewksbury, third team, Keelan Romaine Lawrence. Any specific thoughts here, Bill?
Once again, probably the most underrated lineman position on the whole team, and typically that's your lineman captain. For most of these offenses, they're doing shotgun as well as multiple calls from the line. So I just think that us recognizing these guys and making sure that their names are getting out there is to me is great, because man, these guys are taking a pretty big beating each and every game without any juice.
I mean, there's a lot of guys that I would want to throw in the mix here. There's two guys that didn't make the list that I specifically want to mention, just in Ben Zame from Lowell and Nick Bottomley from Chelmsford, just because of, again, the adjustments that they had to make in Lowell. Going through three different quarterbacks in Lowell, Bottomley having to deal with 2 to 3 to 4 different quarterback schemes in Chelmsford. But these guys, again, cream of the crop and just outstanding play at the center position.
All right, Tim, I'm going to give a little shout out to Sammy Kalibas of Methuen,
Yep.
who is your most undersized lineman of the bunch throughout the MVC, and went up against some pretty big kids. And from Connor's 6 games this year, did a hell of a job. And I think that's the tough part of doing what we're doing, is we're saying, okay, these are our top 3. Everyone else, Sammy's a sophomore, and he's got a couple more years to play. And I think that's where we were mentioned. People shouldn't get bent out of shape. These are the 3 that we kind of went with, because those are the most deserving. But we're not doing the top 8. We're doing the top 3.
Yeah, and by the way, Tim Iannarone at center, I thought of him more on the defensive side, but a stud nonetheless for North Andover. So again, these were. The center especially, I think all of these positions, but there was a lot of discussion and a lot of worthy candidates here at center. Right guard, first team, OC. Bill, if you want to try that last name?
That's all you.
Okay, OC Asa Yimwin. Coach A never even went there. He just called, and pretty much everybody just called him OC. But Central Catholic first team, second team, Anudi Moreno from Andover, third team, Jason Dillon from Billerica. I think anything specific to say on these guys, gents?
Moreno was active on both sides of the ball. So that was big for Lawrence. Like you say, Chuck has brought up OC many times this year about how the year he put together. So both well deserving. And the third guy you said was Billerica's.
Yep, Jason Dillon.
Jason Dillon, hadn't seen him a ton, so maybe Logan, you got anything on him?
Nothing specific on him, but it was kind of watching them as a unit, how they worked. They all had great push off the ball. There was no one really that you could say, oh, that's their weak link on the offensive line, which is why I think, actually with all these teams, Central Catholic and over Billerica, Tewksbury, those are kind of the 4 teams we keep consistently having in this top 3.
All right, and then finally on the offensive line, right tackle, first team, A.J. Heinke from Andover, second team, Michael Sater, Central Catholic, third team, Mark Wilmo Lawrence. Bill, anything specific on these guys?
No, it's your right tackle. It's a big position, a lot of responsibility, especially the offenses that these teams all run. So Sater, I remember him from Methuen Pop Honor, and I'm not surprised. Here we are 4 years later, seeing his name up there. Wilmo, to me as a kid, each and every week was probably their most consistent lineman. And then obviously the kid from Andover, with BB and Brown running, you need to have a solid line. So, I'm not surprised, and all these guys well deserving.
All right, so that is our offense, and again, we have some league-wide awards as well. So, not the last you'll hear about offense, but in terms of specific position awards, that's our offensive awards. We'll take a quick break, come back, do defense and special teams. You are watching MVC Gridiron Weekly, presented by Davila and DeFusco Insurance. It's a dream to own your own business, and Val and Susan Davila made that a reality in February 2013. They started with just 2 insurance carriers, but now right-in-place insurance for Progressive, Safeco, Pilgrim, Plymouth Rock, and MAPFRE, just to name a few. Need auto insurance, renters, commercial, or home? I just asked Val and his crew to find me a better auto and home insurance deal, and he connected me with Plymouth Rock, where I'm saving more than 40% over my previous insurance. Now, your results may vary, but give Davila and DeFusco a try. They pride themselves on having lifelong roots in the Merrimack Valley. Put their experience to work for you. Visit them at 225 Broadway or call 978-241-7950 for a free quote, or check them out at daviladefusco.com. Back here on MVC Gridiron Weekly, presented by Davila and DeFusco Insurance. Tim Wood, Bill Bryant, Hector Longo, Logan Jacobatis. No?
You got it, but...
what did I say?
You got it right, but the hesitation every time.
Yes, Logan J. All right, so... defense, we'll move on in terms of the defensive awards, our position awards here. Gonna just kind of I'm gonna name off the awards here. We don't want to go 4 hours on this show, and we all have some fantasy lineups to get done. So I'm gonna go through.
Not all of us.
No. Well, okay, yeah, that's right. I'm gonna go through the names. And then I'll ask you guys at the end in terms of any thoughts overall, specifically as we go through the list here. So we'll start with defensive end. We had two on each team. First team: Ryan Hogan, Bill Ricca, Tim Iannarone, North Andover. Second team: Mark Wilmo, Lawrence, Jermaine Wiggins, Central Catholic. Third team: Dominic Petty, Central Catholic, Owen Gilligan, Tewksbury. Hogan is probably the guy that we talked about most throughout the course of the season. His name came up in terms of just being beast mode. And quite honestly, the stats kind of bared out. 15 and a half sacks for Hogan to go along with quite honestly, a crazy stat line. Just 81 tackles, in on everything in terms of fumbles, interceptions, tackles for losses. Guy checked all the boxes. Iannarone was the same way. Hector hated it in terms of us putting a defensive guy up for the MVP. Actually, no, Hector hated that we put the team up. So this was the first time, I think, with Iannarone that we put an individual up for a defensive player of the week. But definitely well earned. In terms of defensive tackle, first team, Mike Diffo, from North Andover, Sean Stackpole from Chelmsford. Second team, Dylan Chandler, Tewksbury, Leslie Theodore from Methuen. Third team, Jeremiah Santana from Lowell, Jack Roche from North Andover. Gentlemen, in terms of the ends and the tackles, anything that stands out in those two there for you, Hector? You might have turned off the mic. Bill, you with us?
No, I got you. If you were looking for a secret and as to find North Andover's success, you look at three guys on their defensive front in our awards. I think they were tough and stout up front, and that kind of made a difference for them. That was a big reason why maybe they overachieved this year.
Bill, anything from you?
No, I think with the offenses and the craziness that these offensive coordinators are doing, I think it's so difficult to be a DM these days. So I think when you're being recognized as one of your top defensive players with all those tackles, it's quite a task to be able to do your job and to jump out in coverage as well as hold down your side and make plays come back into the linebackers. So all got to see all these guys play, and they're all pretty big parts of their team.
Logan, want to give you any thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to Billerica like I always do. But whenever I saw Hogan playing, it was like you said, the stats lines were incredible. I didn't keep stats myself every game, but I found myself thinking, like, how many sacks is this guy up to in this one game? Every time I looked up, he was in the backfield, and not even that, just he was part of the run game as well, containing on the edge, keeping those runners in the pocket and allowing his linebackers to come up and make the tackle. And then right here in Chelmsford with Stackpole, I saw him first in their scrimmage with Burlington. He's a pretty big kid for a junior. I thought he would have a good year. I think I put him on my top 25 to watch list for the year. And he definitely didn't disappoint for them defensively.
You know, there were guys that coaches. I won't say that. I think the coaches. I'm not gonna say they fought for more than others, but there's guys that coaches definitely wanted to make sure they spoke on, to make sure they didn't get lost in the mix. Stackpole was one of those guys that in this mix could have very easily gotten lost in the discussion. And 9 sacks for Stackpole, 57 tackles, 35 individual, 14 tackles for loss. I think, again, just a great group here. I got to see a lot of Theodore. I'm just a huge fan of him as a person, and I get to see a lot inside the school as well. And he is a leader on and off the field. You name it, Chandler, all these guys, just outstanding representatives for their teams. So, all right, we move on here now. A position so tough that we put 3 linebackers. Originally, we were going to go like middle, inside, outside. Not so much in high school. We just went with the linebacker position, 3 per team. First team, Michael Slayton, Andover. Second team, first team, Slayton, Kevin Irizarry from Lowell, Anthony Romano from Methuen. Second team, Pat Fleming, Tewksbury, Mark Cassis, Central Catholic, Jake Chasen from Chelmsford. Third team, Aiden Hatt, Andover, Eric Sanchez, Lawrence, Kyle DeRigo, Tewksbury. Guys, this is a list again that was in flux right up until the show. Quite honestly, as some of the stats came in and some of the discussions continued in terms of just trying to make comparisons of where these guys fit in, and kind of thinking back on the eyeball test of what we saw from these guys. But in terms of the elite, I'm not going to say. Well, listen, Slayton and Romano, and we got a lot of input from around the league in terms of Irizarry and his beast mode ability for Lowell. Saw it in person a fair amount, but probably the guy that fans and folks that are watching a lot of football spoke up most about in any of our position votes. So, Bill, Hector, I'll start with you here in terms of just the linebackers and what these guys meant to their teams.
So Logan deserves a lot of credit for this one, lighting the fire under the Romano kid by not putting him in his preseason 25. I think Romano played with an edge all year long, and definitely, he showed a lot last year as a sophomore. This year, he just upped his game, upped the ante. Slayton is a multi-year, rock steady. Andover needs to stop. He's the guy who's going to make the play kind of kid. And like you say, Irizarry, there was a lot of talk about him. So those big three, the Dorigo kid from Tewksbury, I think they have a mold that they have in that little clubhouse that's getting knocked down next year. But the Tewksbury two-way running back lineman, Dorigo fits that mold. They've had one of those stud kids every year for the last 163 years at Tewksbury High School. Man, he just fits that mold. So, tough as nails, rugged kid, just plays bigger than he is. So, those are the impact guys in my eyes.
Well said in terms of the Tewksbury mold. Again, like first team, second team, it's like Slayton Romano to me stood out defensively. Period, above anybody in the league. And so, by the way, okay, let me just back that up for a second. Since Hector backed up the bus, I would have expected that from Bill. Bill's usually the bus guy, but
I just crossed it off my notes, so Hector beat me to
Logan.
It. You gave me the bones and you said Bill, and then you went Hector.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he stole my line.
Logan, anything to add in terms of mea culpas or
I would like to add that it was not a top 25 players in the league list. It was a 25 to watch. I guess I didn't make that clear enough to start the season, and I know I pissed off a lot of Methuen people early on.
You flipped the switch, Logan. That's all you did.
Credit to me.
You lit the pilot light. So I was really just throwing it to you to say you're welcome. Honestly, because.
Hey, and the other one, the Fleming kid is a kid that when I talk to different players about hey, when you get hit, who's a kid, and that Fleming name continuously comes up. And I think sometimes we confuse Pat and Dan.
Yep.
But I know the younger brother, Dan, is a kid that absolutely just leaves an impression on you. But for me personally, I've said it all year long. I'm a Methuen homer, and what Romano has done the last couple of years has been insane, and he's going to be a kid next year that's going to be a force. But, man, I can't talk enough about Slayton and his ability to just impact the defensive side of the ball. And it doesn't mean he doesn't have a lot of supporting cast, but I think as a player that this is this good, I don't think he had enough around him to support him to be able to really compete against the top-tier teams. But Slayton easily deserves that 1A position, where Romano, I think, is 1B, but is very close behind.
Well said. All right, on to safeties and cornerbacks. We'll start with safeties first. First team, Nick Donadio, Central Catholic, Kelvin Davila, Andover. Second team, Brandon Ty Lowell, Danny Fleming, Tewksbury. Third team, Dom DeBerry, Chelmsford, Matt Chico, North Andover. another position where a bevy of very worthy candidates. So congratulations to these guys. Cornerback, let me just pull that up here. Cornerback, first team, Nick Gualtieri, Bill Ricca, Tyler Nolan, Chelmsford. Second team, Kyle Silva from Drake, Jonathan Davila, Andover. Third team, Nolan Timmons from Tewksbury, Dominic Trito from Central Catholic. Anything in terms of the secondary here, guys? I'll start with you, Hector.
You know, I think we see a lot of these guys popping up on both sides of the ball. You know, and it's tough to play defense. Like Bill talked about defensive end, the secondary, all these crazy ass, passing schemes, and you got to step up. But again, I've always loved watching the cover corner in high school and the kids who can do it. It's such a unique skill, and I think we have some guys like, and Ty is one of those guys, a cover guy that you just see, you go, wow, he kind of gets it. He knows what he's doing out there. He has an idea of how to play defense and how to break on the ball and things like that. To me, it's one of the skills I've always liked watching in high school. So it's a pretty solid bunch.
And a difficult bunch, quite honestly. I mean,
deep, Tim, very deep.
Yeah, very deep. I mean, you know, guys that almost Sophie's choice in a lot of ways. When I had
like Victor Harrington being left off the list, to me, I'm struggling with that one. I know he was, number wise, this is what came down to with us four.
Yep.
But I think he was a kid that, he lost his starting quarterback position, and then I'm watching different games, and it's like Victor Harrington. I'm like, fumble recovery, interception, fumble recovery. Just show that he's a multifaceted athlete, but this list was so deep. From Methuen, you had a couple of Coleman who also played safety, D-back. There was a couple other kids that had some solid impact, but you're talking wins, losses, you're talking number of tackles and reps and things like that. It makes it hard to put everyone on the list.
Yeah, I mean, Harrington was one of those guys that was in our initial discussion, but then when you start looking at statistics, you start talking to coaches around the league. I know it's like you said. I know what I saw in person. I know what I saw in huddle.
Right.
And it's a very difficult, just the secondary in general. Very I think it was Sophie's choice with a lot of coaches when discussing these guys, like Central Catholic, for instance. Mark Ciccarelli versus Dominic Trito. Like who's the better guy? And it's like there's only so many spots on these teams, but it doesn't make them any less worthy in terms of their impact for that individual team. We're just trying to put it in the full context of the league, and this corner safety combo was definitely another one of those that went up right to the wire in terms of who gets slotted in where. Anything from you, Logan? Hogan.
Yeah, I think it was great that we got Kyle Silva in there on the second team. He's kind of a guy that got lost in the shuffle with how his team performed down the stretch, losing a number of games. But seeing him in person the number of times that I did, he's a hell of a coverage guy, and he could bring a hit. There's a couple where you could hear him from the top of the stands putting pad to pad on some of the receivers going across the middle.
Absolutely, and a guy that was primarily defense got called into action in the running back spot when Abargan went down and delivered, and then got to go back to the sweet spot for him, and then delivered huge. You saw it in person, Bill. Delivered huge on that pick six in the Methuen Drake game.
Yeah, no, and that was a play that it was almost the same play called a few plays earlier, and he read it perfectly and just took the ball home, And you're absolutely right. So definitely good to see him in that mix as well. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Harrington, where he was getting juice for something else and went back home and solidified a nice solid season.
All right, so we move on to special teams. Another spot. Again, we're going to be honest. It's like we want to include these guys. Some difficult calls. Some spots where kickers, punters, returners. We don't typically talk about their stats in high school. Some no-brainers in terms of the recognition they've gotten, but some tough calls here. We'll start with kicker. This one wasn't as tough in terms of first team Seamus Florio, Andover. Second team Nick Mazzy, Central Catholic. Third team Tyler Keogh from Tewksbury. Guys, as we mentioned, Florio delivered all year, and again could include him in a defensive conversation, as we talked about what he did against North Andover, but he's really shined at the kicker position, as witnessed by him being signed by Yale to be their kicker in the fall.
For 2 years, Tim, now, right? He's been money. He made big kicks, long kicks, clutch kicks. He's been the prototype that you want to measure here. Mazzy's been right there too.
Mazzy's 1A, right? That's one where
he's got another year, but Florio's been elite. And with Tewksbury, with Keogh, you're talking to a kid who's played in big games and had to make kicks at certain times, and there's a lot to be said for those pressure situations.
Bill, anything here?
No, I think Andover had the best special teams as far as the kicking game, bar none. And you saw the field goals make plays all the way up until the Chelmsford Barica game, the last game of the year. So it's definitely something as a coach, if you're not coaching that and working that into your game plan, you're not taking full advantage of special teams.
Kyle, anything on any of these three? I mean, Logan, anything on any of these three?
You're going to get it right on the next one.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Come on, historically, don't vote for yes on that.
I think for Keogh on the third team, it came down to including a guy that does so much on offense and defense already, stepping in to fill that kicker role for a team. And he came up big. It didn't seem like they really missed a beat most of the year with him stepping into that role, even with how much he does on the other sides of the ball.
All right, punter. First team, Mike Lapoli, Chelmsford. Second team, George Dristelarius, Lowell. Third team, DJ Seidel, Billerica. Another one of those spots where listen, it's not that Seamus Florio did some phenomenal punting as well, and some other guys, but Lapoli just stood out for me throughout the year in terms of a guy that was Chelmsford needed field position in so many of their games, especially when Baker went down. And Lapoli was, whether he was quarterback, wide receiver, played, especially at punter. I think we talked one game, he had a 72-yard punt. Now, obviously, some of that's roll, but when you saw the kid deliver in person, just a big boot and was strong on positioning the ball. A lot of, this is definitely one of those positions. I don't think any of us are gonna speak for 10 minutes in terms of the breaking down the skills of each guy here, but definitely a position where we look for a lot of input from coaches from around the league, and these three names just kept coming up, Logan.
Yeah, I think this is just another way of guys stepping up for the team. Lapoli does it in other aspects. They needed a punter, he stepped in. DJ for Billerica, he should be their quarterback next year. He was the backup for Houlihan. He's going to step into that role, and rather than sitting on the bench waiting for his turn next season, he found a way to contribute and be a difference for his team.
All right, and in our final position award, return specialist, first team Shane Aylward, Tewksbury, second team Jacob Rivers, Lowell, third team Nick Donadio, Central Catholic. I think this was one of those positions, a lot of guys that could be included here. Scotty Brown had some very sneaky return numbers for before he stepped into the quarterback role. With Lowell, it was Rivers and Morris. Rivers had the better numbers overall. Aaron Morris had some of the flashier huddle moments, but Rivers coming over, going from Drake to Lowell, definitely delivered there. I mean, Aylward again and again. I think we're talking about 6 games for Aylward. Aylward had 4 kickoff return touchdowns. Just an amazing athlete, and there are some that might look at this and say this was a lifetime achievement award to get him in the awards. I will tell you, absolutely not. Statistically, the numbers bear it out, and Aylward just kept stepping up whenever he was in for the Redmen. So. Anything here? Bill? Let's start with you here.
I'm going to go back to Hector. Hector looked like he had something incredible to say.
Every year, it's been whatever 30 years on the high school beat, something like that, whatever it is. You look at a coach, you go, what the heck is this guy doing kicking to this kid? And Shane Neal was that kid. You just shake your head and go, anybody who kicks to that kid is a lunatic. All right, if you put the ball in his hand, something bad is going to happen to your football team. And over again, 4 kickoff returns for TDs, to me, that just leaps off the page. He was such a weapon. On the Donadio front, he was the kid who said, the game is on the line. We got to do anything we can to keep the ball away from Donadio. And if he got the ball in a big
offense,
situation.
Defense,
return,
whatever.
Look out.
Yeah.
You use the word returner. If you included interception returns, he might be the Gritty's first ballot Hall of Famer for that kind of returns, and especially big situations. So both of those guys, premier athletes in a position where they can break games open.
All right.
I saw a little thing on college basketball. The coach, I think Michigan, had a sign that basically said "communicate" on defense. And it was, see that really in the basketball court. And I think for Aylward, it was the same thing, like a big sign. Don't kick to Shane, for the love of God. Because in the Methuen game, that's what they preached all week long. And as the kick is running out, okay, don't kick it to Shane. They kick it to Shane. He runs back and scores their opening, first quarter opening kickoff for a touchdown. You're like, why would Coach try and kick it to him? And then you hear on the sideline, we were saying don't kick it to Aylward. It's crazy.
Yep.
But he gets his hand on that ball in open field, and like Donadio, forget about it.
All right, there's our position awards. We will take a quick break here, come back and give our league-wide awards, and do some season wrap-up before we get out of here. Our final show of the season, right in the middle of the 2019 MVC Gridiron Awards. We will take a quick break here on MVC Gridiron Weekly, presented by Davila and DeFusco Insurance. It's a dream to own your own business, and Val and Susan Davila made that a reality in February 2013. They started with just 2 insurance carriers, but now Right in Place Insurance for Progressive, Safeco, Pilgrim, Plymouth Rock, and MapFreight, just to name a few. Need auto insurance, renters, commercial, or home? I just asked Val and his crew to find me a better auto and home insurance deal, and he connected me with Plymouth Rock, where I'm saving more than 40% over my previous insurance. Now, your results may vary, but give Davila and DeFusco a try. They pride themselves on having lifelong roots in the Merrimack Valley. Put their experience to work for you. Visit them at 225 Broadway or call 978-241-7950 for a free quote, or check them out at daviladefusco.com. Big shout out to the folks at AFC Urgent Care, Lisa Williams and her team over there. AFC Urgent Care, the right care right now. You'll never need an appointment. Got that persistent cough and cold, that cut that needs a few stitching, or need a sports physical and don't want to wait weeks to get into your primary doctor? AFC's streamlined approach helps you be seen quickly and feel better fast. In Methuen, in the Merrimack Street Medical Professionals Building, 380R Merrimack Street, in North Andover as well, in the Burton Grill Plaza, 8 to 8 Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 Saturday and Sunday. Go to afcurgentcare.com for more details. Back here on MVC Gridiron Weekly, presented by Davila DeFusco Insurance. Tim Wood, Logan, Hector, Bill, and you. Very excited as we go through our first ever MVC Gridiron Awards.
Tim, you left out Kyle.
Oh, I left out Kyle and Hogan.
And Hogan.
Yeah, Hogan, yep. So and stitching. All right. Listen, we're gonna go through the league-wide awards here. First of all, without getting too sappy, I want to thank the gentlemen on the screen for all their hard work throughout the season. Logan new to the show, but Logan has been out and about. Logan started his own thing with the Merrimack Valley Sports Report, and quickly became a very valuable source of information, to the point where it was like we gotta work with this guy. He's so to have him in the mix, we're very excited, and just the work you all have put in throughout the season. We've said it many times. I don't need my fat face up on the screen. None of us are beauty queens. But whoa, hey, Bill, I'm sorry. I know you've got those trophies that you like to show off. But we're doing this for the kids, for the programs, to give the sport some added exposure, and it's been a phenomenal season. I've said it a couple times, and not to get too sappy, but I wasn't sure if we were even going to be able to do the show during at a couple points throughout the summer. So really appreciative for all the efforts, and one of the unsung heroes. You see his graphics, you see the score graphics every week. You see him doing so many different things for us. He's probably the O lineman of the show in terms of just not getting that recognition. But Chris Calisi, just a huge shout out. He did, and again, just said, "Can you come up with an awards graphic for us for these Gridiron Awards?" And boom, 2 seconds, he was on the case. And that's coming again, a guy who just absolutely loves high school sports. And this was almost, he's an extremely talented designer. This was just kind of a passion project for him, and did a phenomenal job for us throughout the season. So huge thanks to Chris. All right, on with the awards. We start with our league-wide awards. Let's see where to start. Let's start with Assistant Coach of the Year. Now, this is one of those awards where you don't normally see it, but we wanted to give some recognition to the assistants of these programs that just do a phenomenal job for their schools, and aren't the upfront guy, but are the guys that kind of keep the engine moving and are delivering year after year for these teams. So a lot of nominees here. Here is our winner, our Assistant Coach of the Year, Paul Norton from the Tewksbury Redmen. Not just from, again, one of those things where we asked the entire league in terms of this award and all the coaches, and Paul's name just kept coming up again and again and again. And Just an absolute beast for the Redmen through the years, Hector.
Absolutely. I mean, that staff has been in place for a long time, and the system that they have totally immersed the kids in. It's not just the head coach; it's every guy underneath them. I threw votes in for Tommy and Mark Bradley because I think so much of that Tewksbury staff. So I think, top to bottom, you couldn't go wrong.
So I mean, listen, when you look at the awards as we list them on the website on MVC, sportstoday.com, you will see in a lot of, and again, I think Logan did a nice job with this in terms of how he separated everything out. But this is one of the few awards in terms of what we're discussing on the show that we put other receiving votes, because again, these guys don't get their names heard a lot. But Michael Rometta from Lawrence, Joe Ganji from Central Catholic, John Sexton from Central Catholic, Eric Fulgham from Chelmsford, Devin Leakin, I'm gonna say from Billerica, the aforementioned Bradleys from Tewksbury, Matt Cirillo from North Andover, all receiving votes. And again, every coach, I think when we asked coaches, it was like, how many of my guys can I name? Because it's just, they mean that much. And again, it's kind of a Sophie's Choice situation. Like, I don't know, I have to pick one over the other here. But again, Paul Norton's name just kept coming up again and again. He is our assistant coach of the year. All right. We also are doing, we're breaking it down by class and giving awards to Freshman of the Year, Sophomore of the Year, Junior of the Year, and Senior of the Year. Our award for Freshman of the Year goes to Scotty Brown from Andover. Guys, this was probably as no-brainer as it gets in terms of just what he delivered for the Warriors, Bill.
Yeah, no, I think Lincoln put a nice strong bid in towards the end, the last couple of games with BB down. So when you have two freshmen in that top list of Freshmen of the Year that are playing substantial varsity minutes, that's impressive. So, but yeah, definitely Scotty ran away with that award.
Our Sophomore of the Year, again, a no-brainer, Aiden Pereira from Central Catholic Raiders, just in the discussion of the league-wide awards, but especially in this class award, Hector.
Yeah, they were the premier program in the league this year, and he was their quarterback as stepping into the sophomore. There's not much more you can say about that. They were explosive offensively, and legs. The only thing that stopped them was the shoulder injury, and in St. John's giant front, and they're playing at Gillette next week. So, giant year, and again, he comes in a nice line of Central Catholic quarterbacks between Edwards and Milano, a couple of really legit players over the last 10 years, and he's the next one.
Junior gets a little trickier. A lot more worthy. I won't say, freshman, sophomore, definitely there was some separation. Junior, a lot more really close guys. We went with Anthony Romano from the Methuen Rangers, a guy that any other year would be probably the talk of the league in terms of just what he did and what he delivered week in, week out for Methuen. But Bill, I'll let you put on the homer hat here in terms of Romano.
Yeah, no, as I said, to me, Slayton was for me one of my premier, all sides of the ball, every aspect of the game. And I think Anthony Romano was a close second in that, where that kid played left tackle, left guard, right tackle, tight end, running back, ran the option, caught passes as a tight end, and oh, by the way, was making X amount of tackles each and every game, whether it was, blitzing up the middle, sacking the quarterback, or getting out in the flat. Anthony is just he's a stud, and you're going to see him again next year. As you're looking through the list of juniors, you can almost say that about each and every one of those kids on that list as juniors. But to me, Anthony is very much deserving to be in that number one spot.
And again, you'll see that listed out on the website. But I mean, in terms of juniors, I mean, whether it's Remetta, Keogh, Hamilton, Irizarry, Wiggins, I mean, and those are just the ones receiving votes. There's junior. It speaks well to the strength of the league in terms of just what we have to look forward to next year in terms of these juniors. A senior of the year, like this was difficult, but again, it comes down to I won't say I held sway here, but
I don't remember voting for this one though, Tim.
No,
that's weird.
No,
Hector was texting me earlier. Did you vote for the senior of the year? And I said no. I think I was blocked on that one.
Maybe. I think I might have let. I think I might have let you guys vote. I'll take a look at that afterwards. Senior of the year, my athlete would be. Yep, Josh Beebe Ramos from the Andover Golden Warriors. Again, a guy who just absolutely delivered game in, game out. Came back from injury to have a phenomenal season. I mean, the statistics were there, but I mean the breakaway speed, the 1,322 yards he finishes with, rushing 7.03 yards per carry, 24 total touchdowns for Ramos, and quite honestly, probably could have had more. I think they kind of shut off the faucet at times with him. Just an absolute stud of a player. Any thoughts here on Ramos, Logan?
No, you really can't go wrong with this pick. I know we joke about you having the control with this pick, but the numbers he was able to put up this year after coming back from injury, it's hard to argue with.
Yeah, he kind of had the control in terms of the numbers he put up. I mean, listen, again, so many seniors to choose from here, and we've got another award that kind of speaks to the seniors that we'll mention here in a little bit, but Ramos would just it statistically probably comes down to Ramos and Houlihan, just in terms of the Madden numbers they put up. But Ramos, congratulations to Beebe there. All right, we had a community star of the year. There was one guy. So a lot of guys, like this was one of those awards where the teams do a lot. As a team, they do a lot in the community. There's one guy here that just stood out for us, and he his name. Let me pull up the slide. Georgie Tejada from the Lawrence Lancers does a lot of work with unified basketball. Does works at Walmart, but when it come to choosing what his internship would be, according to Coach Alday, he wanted to work with special needs kids and did a lot of work with special needs kids inside the school with unified basketball. So that he is our community star of the year. One of those awards where not sure. The coaches wanted to pick a specific guy that kind of came back to us late with a lot of nominations once they kind of understood what we were looking for, and Tejada still stuck out. So congratulations to the Lancers and Coach Alday and Mr. Tejada there. Very well earned. We also We also chose a student athlete of the year, and here we went with a valedictorian and a salutatorian, as you would with your graduating classes. Our valedictorian, Jacob Tamayo from the Lawrence Lancers. Our salutatorian, Nate Hebert from Central Catholic. Again, two outstanding individuals. The GPA was there, the work in the AP classes. Everything you want in a student athlete. Again, a spot where there were no shortage of nominations here. As I don't know, these athletes, these student athletes, Bill, kind of continue to kind of break that stereotype of the blockhead football player. And are just absolute beasts on and off the field.
No, I mean, just look at the list. You got, Bargwin, Ty, Coleman, Tamayo, Hebert. These are all kids that play skill positions, that have multiple responsibilities, and they're doing it on the field and off the field. These are your future stars, as far as being leaders in their community when they get older. So it's a good list to have, and I'm glad we're recognizing student athletes.
And again, guys that didn't even make the final list, like Jake Chasen and Bobby Lee from Chelmsford. Bobby Lee's going to NYU on an academic scholarship. Jake Chasen going on a academic to either Bentley or Assumption. So there's no shortage of nominees here, but our winners, Tamayo and Hebert. So next up, our team, Hector's favorite categories are our team offense and defense. Our team offense, the Billerica Indians. Our best team defense, the Central Catholic Raiders. Statistically, in terms of points put up, could have just relied on that. Offense, I just go with what I saw in terms of just their weapons and the variety of ways they came at you. And Billerica definitely checked all those boxes for me. Team defense, I mean, again, we could have gone Central Catholic. We could have gone Tewksbury. Central Catholic just dominated throughout, Bill, and the defense was such a part of that.
Yeah, no, Tim, I think their schedule speaks for itself. They were, right up until St. John's, who's in the Super Bowl, Everett, the entire MVC. So both sides of the ball for Central to be where they were at the end of the season needed to be solid. I think you could make a case offensively. They were, pretty close to Billerica as well. But, a big part of that is their depth and number of players that can put up serious numbers. So, and then obviously Billerica, when you have a quarterback throwing over 2,000 yards and a receiver getting 1,000 yards, those are some serious weapons right there. Never mind, Hamilton as a running back and a solid offensive line, which we've talked about throughout the show. So both teams deserving, and I feel comfortable with both our picks.
So a few awards left to go. You call them the end of the night Oscar picks. But we will start with the fan favorite MVP. This is the award that we put to the fans, much like we do each week with the MVC MVP. Unlike what we do each week where the fans are just part of that vote with the MVC MVP, fans were completely 100% in charge of this category. We put 24 different guys into the mix to be considered here, and one guy just kept winning and winning and winning the vote. Again, as we said, well over about 10,300 votes total on all of the different matchups of this fan favorite MVP. And our winner, Brendan Ty from the Lowell Red Raiders. A lot of support out there in the community, and I'll be honest, guys, I was happy to see this because, again, we talk about this flex position and where do we fit guys in. I the fans took care of that for us here, I think. Hector?
Yeah, I mean, multitasking personified. You mentioned earlier a lifetime achievement. Well, Ty is a guy who's been, how many years has he been doing it for there? Like I said, the 4,000 yards and 51 touchdowns. Legitimate, put him wherever you want kind of kid. He's going to play for you. It takes a lot of sacrifice for a scholarship kid to move to quarterback, and he just did it with no issues whatsoever. So very worthy candidate and definitely a quality vote there. The fans got it right in my eyes, I think.
Logan, anything here in terms of Ty?
Yeah, I definitely think the fans got it right. It helps us out a little bit to give him that recognition where he doesn't really fit into one certain box. He gets a lot of that recognition for his offense, but defensively too. Coach Florence even mentioned to us how they had him at safety, linebacker, all over the place. If they asked him to play defensive line, he would have done that too. So to see a guy that works so hard like this get recognized by the fans is definitely the right thing.
All right, so congratulations to Brendan, our fan favorite league MVP, as awarded by the fans out there in MVC Nation. All right, so our next up, the MVC Small Star of the Year, our winner here, Nolan Houlihan from the Billerica Indians. Another situation where this is one of those where it came right down. Thanksgiving put me over the edge. Probably one of the one award where I kind of had to kind of rethink it for myself here. But the stats are huge. We've talked a lot about him throughout the show. What he delivered for this team, Bill, throughout the season. And throughout his entire career is just remarkable.
No, I absolutely. I think we talked early on about Barica having someone like Nolan running the offense and how they were going to be benefiting from that because of his ability to make plays, but also his intelligence and his experience. And I think we saw that, and that's why they ended up with so many wins, losing to North Andover, losing to Tewksbury. And where did both those teams end up? Deep into the playoffs. So, I think Barica missed out, because they had some injuries early on in their line. And if all things being equal, could they have upset either one of those teams? I think without question, if all cylinders were clicking correctly. So I think Nolan's right where he needs to be as the MVC Small All-Star.
Our MVC Large Star of the Year, Michael Slayton from the Andover Golden Warriors. Again, just an absolute two-way superstar. Likely headed to Bentley to continue his career, though not in stone at this point. But, just, again, a guy that we saw week in, week out, and dominated throughout the season, dominated the vote. And congratulations to Mr. Slayton. We'll might as well just go right and change the slide, and the name stays the same. The Defensive Star of the Year for the MVP for the MVC as a whole. Again, Michael Slayton. Taking home a fair amount of hardware here, Logan, but kind of hard to look away from the dominance that this guy created throughout his career.
Yeah, he's just all over the place. If a big play needed to be made, he was there to make it for Andover. It's good to see him get the recognition. He's definitely puts in a lot of hard work, tough as nails kid, and to earn a kind of the Star of the Year, usually those go to offensive guys. So to see a defensive guy get something like that, because how much he steps up and makes those big plays is huge.
Our Offensive Star of the Year, Aiden Pereira from the Central Catholic Raiders. Again, we've said it many times. This guy stepped in, did not know what. Maybe Coach A is probably the only guy who knew in terms of what they had in Pereira in terms of filling some big shoes at quarterback. Pereira comes in and from game one just absolutely dominated in all the clutch situations. Right up until his shoulder injury, tried to play through it, even showed some real guts in trying to play through it. Hector, again, we talk about these awards so often going to seniors, and do you feel any remorse in terms of this going to a sophomore, or was it just a matter of this guy just
not when a kid is this special?
Yeah,
and special is the word. I'm probably not one of those guys who would consider being an ageist kind of thing. I think the best guy deserves it. And he was the best guy on the best team. So the numbers are what they are, but the wins and the toughness, and I think you talked about the word most valuable and where the player of the year versus most valuable. We saw what happened when he was hurt. We saw what happened to that football team. So just interesting to see what he will do over the next 2 years.
Pereira takes our offensive star of the year. Again, a lot of different nominees, a lot of folks receiving votes in this category. You can see that on MVCSportsToday.com. After the show, we will post the full list of all the folks receiving votes. But a lot of discussion here. A fair amount of discussion when it came to Coach of the Year, but kind of. Not a broken record, but Brian Aylward, Tewksbury Redmond. What they did this year in following up last year. You said the mold, Hector, but this guy sets the tone.
He definitely does, and again, this was more of a. I think this is a little more wide open than we might have seen, simply because you can point to different coaches in the way they handle things. Over at North Andover,
yep.
They reaching North Finals. A team that lost so much, and with Andover, EJ had a big year. Central Catholic, Chuck deserves absolute credit for keeping that team going and rolling. In the end, BA is as good a choice as we can find for the sole reason that I don't think everybody thought they'd be this good. And if you mocked an over-under number, they went over early, but in my eyes. So I give him all the credit in the world.
So what kind of heat are you going to take from Coach A on this one?
None. He's not that kind of guy.
I know he isn't. I just had to say it. The Breeders' Cup discussion will break down a little bit because of this, or the picks will keep flowing. No, yeah, and I think that's really what stands out in terms of all these coaches is none of them would lobby for themselves, and none of them. The selfless and the tone that every single one of these guys sets. Coach A in the discussion, Dubzinski certainly in the discussion. Listen, all day, Coach Adati from Lawrence even got some discussion, just because listen, you've got to set a tone, you got to rebuild, and he definitely, we saw it in person, we talked to him, we saw a lot of good things happening with that Lawrence program. Another team where, listen, a few things break differently. That team learns how to win a little earlier in the season, and you're talking about a 6-win team there. But a lot of good things happening there. But congratulations to Coach Aylward and just the entire. That's a program win, but he sets the tone and a worthy award winner. We have 2 more awards that we're going to give out. The first one that we want to talk about is the Ambassadors Awards. Now, what this was when we talked to coaches and we said, listen, the one kid that you want representing the MVC, the one kid in your program, and this was a senior award. This was a senior award in terms of just what these kids represented to their programs and what they represented to their schools, what they represented in the community. We asked the coaches, we talked to fans, we talked amongst ourselves in terms of what we saw, and this was one where it's not just those receiving votes. Others receiving votes. We put, there's 11 men on the field. We got 11 award winners of our first Ambassador Awards. They are in alphabetical order: Shane Aylward from Tewksbury, Connor Bryant from Methuen, Mark Ciccarelli from Central Catholic, Kareem Coleman from Methuen, Nick Donadio from Central Catholic, Seamus Florio from Andover, Lucas Abarguin, Drake, Mark Cassis, Central Catholic, Peter Radulski, North Andover, Jacob Tamayo, Lawrence, and last but not least, Brendan Ty from Lowell. Bill, you look at this list. Is what strikes you the most about this list?
No, I think these are all kids that made a solid impact with their team for multiple years and are excellent athletes, but also kids that seem to be the ones being interviewed after games and just doing the right thing. There's nobody on this list that jumps off as someone who just didn't represent themselves, their town, or their team in a way that wasn't anything but stellar.
The one guy on this list that stands out above all the others is Radulski. I thought that is probably one of my favorite stories of the year in terms of a guy that had been fighting for the job, didn't get it, stayed with the team, found ways to contribute, stayed passionate, positive, and given his moment was ready and absolutely delivered for that team when Schindler went down. And so I think, you said it earlier on, Hector, I think, as we were talking about this in terms of it just being one of your favorite stories of the year. I wholeheartedly agree and was happy to put Radulski on this list.
Absolutely, yeah. But again, with that number, you really can't go wrong. I think Bill said it. You can't go wrong with a lot of those guys.
And listen, there's guys not on this list that are going to be again, we went with 11 men on the field, 11 recipients. Every program has these guys, these guys that you're going to shed a lot of tears at the award banquets, knowing that you're not going to get to coach that guy anymore, to be his teammate, and we went with 11, but boy, you could name about 30 on this list. So, congratulations to our Ambassador Award winners. That leaves us with one award to go, and that is the MVC Gridiron Award League MVP. We talked about it last week, gentlemen. What most valuable means. We had offensive stars, defensive stars, small, large stars, trying to recognize as many of those star quality as we can. We talk about valuable, and it came down to us collectively in terms of what this kid meant to his team in a clutch situation. Many votes here, and the only category where we will I'll show the voting breakdown or the placement breakdown. But our MVP, Tyler Keogh from the Tewksbury Redmen. Congratulations to Tyler. Again, did not dominate any specific category of statistics, but week in, week out, when we talked about those wins, when we talked about those clutch moments, when you talk to guys around the league in terms of the heart and soul of a team, Logan, Tyler's name just kept coming to the top of the list.
Yeah, it's like he said, and I don't think we had him on first team at any one spot.
Nope.
On our list. However, his name was in every discussion: offense, defense, special teams. When they needed to play, he was a guy they relied on. They had a lot of those guys, but he was someone that they depend on, that they knew would come up, make the big kick, make the big tackle, break off a big run. He was just someone that was overall dependable and meant a lot to Tewksbury going as deep into the playoffs as they did.
Bill, just overall thoughts on the MVP discussion and on Mr. Keogh.
No, I think a lot of people are going to be confused, and I just want to set the record straight that most valuable player on their team and what they meant to their team and their team's success overall. I think you have offensive kids that are just studs. You have defensive kids, and then, what we talked about in this award and what we wanted to be was who was the most valuable player across the MVC for their team, but their team also had to have success as well. And I think, I talk about Slayton all year long, and they had a nice successful year, but to me, Keogh just got that nod for that final vote as far as the MVP of the MVC.
Right or wrong, for me it was gonna come down to which team went farthest, and then for me it's like which guy on that team delivered in for that team in the specific situation, and given what happened to this Tewksbury team, losing the heart and soul of their team in the critical spot of their season, and Shane Aylward going down. And again, Shane Aylward still put up great numbers. I mean, there's guys on both sides of the ball, and I will, I'll pull up the voting here, because Tyler 1, Nick Donadio 2, Michael Slayton 3, Ramos, Ty, Houlihan, all receiving votes. But for us, it was Keogh's name just kept coming up again and again in terms of that critical guy in that critical situation that delivered and carried his team to success.
He was Mr. November, Tim.
He was, absolutely.
He was Mr. November.
I mean, he was Mr. October too, but then even more so Mr. November, and that's the guy the guy you want, right, Hector? I mean, that's the guy you got weekend.
I think that was the determining factor. The November he had.
Yeah.
To me, was the determining factor.
It's again. There will be other discussions about who is MVP worthy. I don't think you can go wrong in any which direction you want to consider this award. These 6 guys are the guys that were in the mix, but there's a few others that you could certainly make cases for when you talk about playing both ways of the ball. I mean, listen, even a guy like Seamus Florio, in terms of what he brought to Andover, it fits that mold for me in terms of that valuable component. But hey, congratulations to all the award winners here. Huge thanks to all the folks that contributed and helped us to put out this first ever MVC Gridiron Awards. Gentlemen, as we say goodbye for the 2019 season, as we kind of put a bow on it, we recap it, we think about the things that stood out. I'll start with you, Hector. I mean, what are the big storylines for you that stood out this season that made 2019 a little different than some years?
Well, I think the ones I have to look at first and foremost are the two guys from Tewksbury and from Methuen, and Connor and Aylward, getting hurt, and the impacts that had on the season and the way their teams proceeded without them. There's no debating that one of those guys would probably have been our MVP had they played the whole year.
Yep.
Simply because they were, they have been so good and so dynamite. Just goes to show you the fragility of this thing. To me, that was like the biggest thing of the year. To see a kid like Elwood get kind of robbed of not seeing those guys. And so, hats off to them both coming back, Connor in a gigantic way, and Shane with so much toughness going through, like you said, Tim, not just the shoulder, but there were ankle injuries. And, we'll see better days from him, too, at the college level. Just those guys, I don't know, we get a little cheated by not having them for the full 11 or 12 or whatever the number is. In my eyes, that's what I would think of.
Bill, overall thoughts on the 2019 season?
That's a tough one to follow, man. The first thing that jumps out is losing the Friday nights. I think people are missing the boat on the MVC football and getting to some of these games. And we had just, despite a lot of the adversity, we had some great games and great moments and big, huge plays like Tyler or Logan, whatever, said earlier. I'm just kidding. Bill Ricca, you had 3 plays over 95 yards with Cyrus and Houlihan and things like that. So I just hope, I know we talk a lot about fixing the league and making things better, and I hope we can get back to some Friday night football, give these coaches a Sunday off that they didn't get pretty much all year. And there's a lot of young kids that are starring this past year, freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. So it's going to be another great year next year.
Logan, overall thoughts?
I think one thing that sticks out to me is obviously all the hard work from all these kids, but the selflessness that we've talked about. Kids moving positions, like Barwin and Drake getting hurt and coming back playing quarterback. Ty moving from receiver to running back, quarterback, safety, linebacker. There's kids like that across the conference. Harrington moving to safety after he lost the quarterback job. It's all these kids working to do what they can in that moment for their team. It doesn't seem like there was any bitter feelings from any kids. It was just, what can I do right now in this situation to make the team better?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think all great thoughts there, guys. I just, I think what stood out for me in this group are those two-way guys, are those selfless guys, are the guys that stepped. I mean, you had situations here. I can't remember seeing so many clutch guys go. I mean, obviously you're talking about Bryant, you're talking about Aylward, but I mean Schindler from North Andover, Neil from Lowell, and Ty stepping in there, and I mean you had these situations all over, and I think that's what I just absolutely love. It is, and football gives to these kids outside of just the athletic. The athletic skills in the moment. I think it just gives them some life skills that they probably won't even recognize that they got until they're going to put them into use in their next phases of their careers for a lot of these seniors. Just absolutely amazing efforts throughout the year. I think one of the things also that stands out for me is the number of fields that are being retired this year, and how different this league is going to be in terms of how these games are played next year. In so much turf and new fields coming into the mix next year. And Bill, you mentioned it in terms of just how's that going to affect Tewksbury? How's that going to affect how is that, whatever you thought of their fields, they knew their fields. Those teams knew their fields. So now, as so many of these new fields come online next year, it's going to be kind of leveling the playing field in terms of that literal home field advantage. One thing.
Yeah, Tim, there's going to be a bunch of new schools battling for second as far as the best place to play, between the concessions and the halftime show and the band at Methuen. I'm really looking to see who's going to step up as far as, these other towns and cities, who's going to be that, distant second place as far as place to play.
No bias there whatsoever from Bill.
No, not at all. None whatsoever. Just honestly, that was very much facts based right there.
So I don't want to stir controversy at all, but at the same time, there's like as I ask you guys, the one thing that stands out for you in terms of looking ahead to 2020, just where we're at now with these programs. One thing that yeah. No, I know, Hector. Yes, Listen, it's the last show of the year. It's the last show of the year. We are wrapping this up, but I do want to get your thoughts on this. Andover. Andover's got Scotty Brown. Yeah, no. Stop texting. Andover's also got the young Perry kid at quarterback. I'm going to be really intrigued to see how that plays out. And I mean, and to see is that a dual threat situation that evolves there? Is that I'm going to be interested to see how that situation plays out, because I don't think Brown was a surprise per se. I think Coach Perry knew what he had and knew he had to go to him, but he made a very gutsy decision this year. And he's got some decisions and some situations heading into 2020 as well. Hector, I'll start with you in terms of final thoughts. Anything that you're thinking of heading into 2020 with the MVC?
No, just you see it. The teams have reloaded, right? Quiet you. The teams have reloaded, and there are young stars on the horizon. You talked about the young Perry boy and Brown, Harrington, Pereira. The young stars have reloaded in this league. It'll be interesting to see if
who's going to step up in Methuen.
Yeah, right. I mean,
yeah.
There are legends out there looking to be replaced. So it'll be interesting to see who does step in. Logan,
any final thoughts from you?
I think for me down here in Chelmsford, it's going to be seeing if they can take that next step. Like we talked about, winning some of those closer games, getting those 3 more wins that they had the chance to get. Breaker, Stack, Pull, some of those guys coming back. If they can learn from the mistakes they made at the end of the games this season, or how they can improve to be in a better position, just to see if Coach Peterson can help them get to the next level and win those extra couple games a year.
Bill, final thoughts?
Yeah, Tim, I'm gonna go a little off topic here. My final note is going to be congrats to the Lawrence Pup Honor 10U team that won 19-0 over Connecticut and is going to Florida. This is the future of the MVC. Some of them going to Central, but most of them going to Lawrence. Congrats to that team. Good luck in Florida, because you're going to be playing against some top teams all over the country, and that's quite a feat. The McCody twins from the Patriots donated $10,000 to their efforts to get down to Florida, because it is no joke as far as how much the plane tickets and staying and all that. So congrats to the coaches. Brendan Meduno of Become Fitness is one of the coaches on that team, who is the trainer for my son, Aiden Pereira. Multiple other kids in the MVC. So it's good to see Brendan doing such a great job with that as well. So good luck to that team.
Absolutely, the future, as you mentioned, and a great story there. So, listen, again, huge thank you to all the viewers. If you stuck through our 3-hour marathon here, as we said, we'll be posting all the award winners on MVCSportsToday.com. We'll post a thing on social media as well. Jim Cunningham mentioned it in the comments. See you during winter sports. You will see us during winter sports. We will be doing a MVC Sports Today show. Uh-oh. We lost Hector? You okay, Hector?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. There was a huge. Okay, so you will see us during MVC Sports in the winter. One last thing I'll mention, we'll be putting it up. Giving Tuesday is obviously Tuesday. We are a nonprofit news organization. We will be doing a fundraiser. We will be putting it up where to donate, where to help us continue this mission of publicizing and promoting the youth athletes around the MVC. Hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. We will be back, I believe, next week. We'll put it up online. Still some things to figure out there, but winter sports are getting in swing. But to everybody, to everyone that joined us throughout the season on Skype, on interviews, to all the coaches, to all the athletic directors, there's just too many names to mention. But just a huge thank you. And, first and foremost to the three gentlemen here for all your hard efforts, all your work throughout the season. Another great season for MVC Gridiron Weekly, and just thrilled to bring it to you guys. For Logan, Ryan, Kyle, Hogan, Jacobatus, for Hector Longo, Bill Bryant, Tim Wood, have a great NFL Sunday. Stay safe throughout the snow. We will talk to you soon. Go Pats. You have been watching MVC Gridiron Weekly, presented by Davila and DeFusco Insurance. Have a great week, everybody.